Oh shit, I have so many people up. Okay, I'm sorry guys, I was just literally just retweeting. Matt is coming up as my co-host, Joshua is coming up as my co-host, and of course Solar will also be in spirit anyway. Not in spirit, that sounds wrong, but we'll say in essence. We'll say, yeah, I like that. Okay, in essence, he will also be the co-host. So give me like one more minute. I'm just getting some things together. I have an actual image, astrological timing, and we are gonna fucking talk about curses and how to fucking break them. Well, that's really what we're gonna talk about is the latter thing. But you have to know how to fucking do them in order to break them. And this is the thing where a lot of white magicians go wrong. And this is where I'm well poised to explain to you guys the proper way. So we're gonna fucking do that, and we are not gonna let haters. I didn't even think haters were ever real, but now I realize that they are fucking real. And yes, I do bring them on myself sometimes, but we're in a position of strength, power, synthesis, rhetoric, truth, and of course, love. So give me 1 minute, guys. I'm gonna bring Matt up if he wants to talk. If Joshua wants to talk, that's totally fine. Avi, thank you so much for coming. I just want to shout you out, especially. I feel like I don't, I don't. Whenever I'm feeling bad, I literally get a DM from Avi. It's like, "Are you okay? Are you taking care of yourself? Know that I see you. Know that I hear you. Know that I'm there." I'm not a big relier on people. That's not my thing. Like, yes, with Solar, I definitely have overburdened him sometimes, but in general, I don't rely on people. So it's really kind, and it helped me get through the last 4 months. So appreciate that, and of course, Mookie. We love Mookie, and Mookie's quiet and gentle support. I guess the Dakinis. I guess the Dakinis have always liked me throughout my life, so maybe that's why. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna bring. Oh shit! I didn't bring Matt up as co-host. That's fine. I'll bring Matt up as co-host now. I apologize, Matt. You are my co-host. Both Joshua and Matt are my co-hosts, and Solar, obviously. So, okay. So I'm gonna post an image in the chat, which will be. John did this. So John is. John is my friend, and he is a great astrologer, and he's a student of Austin Kopach, who's really fucking, which is really fucking cool, to be honest. And anyways, he is on retreat right now, but he did do me a big favor, and he selected an election date for us. So you might ask, why, Jen, do you need an election date? Well, we need to be able to create talismans if we so need. And I asked him to do a solar, so homage to our brother of the lodge, I guess, who is with his wife. So happy birthday to her. I'm sure she won't listen to this, but he will maybe. So at least he can see, he can hear it. So we need an election, an astrological election of the sun, because the sun is actually one of the most useful planets to break curses. And it's also a really useful planet to make spiritual oils. So, okay, so I'll explain all of this once we get started. No, this is not going to be a hoodoo lesson. It's not going to be a Santeria lesson. It's not going to be a witchcraft or Wicca lesson. It's going to be, of course, Christian Kabbalah. We're going to make a little Abra Merlin. My recipe's a little different than Crowley's, obviously. Y'all know. I'm a Naga of my own mind. So, of course, I'm going to do something that I think is the best. And I'm going to teach you guys that same recipe, which I think is also the best. So, that's what we're going to do. So, Matt, go ahead. Joshua, go ahead. I won't do a formal intro right away, but I'm going to just post the election. I don't know, the PFP thing. I'm going to post it in the chat so we all can see what the fuck I'm talking about, and it won't just be me struggling through it. And then we'll totally get started. Okay. Oh, well, also, I am going to read Gnostic prayers to begin the space. Not anything crazy. No invocations this time. No like Liber 49. But I actually think it's important. I think it'll set the tone for us, and I think it is cool because obviously this is a speculative Gnostic space. So in this space, we are plus ultra. In this space, we're speculative Gnostics. And we don't even have to talk about timeline bullshit today. In fact, I think that we're actually going to free ourselves of, well, no, my timeline is funny. because I don't really post about the heavy questions of the day necessarily, right? But I think the political timeline, we do discuss that, and I do enjoy it. But I think it's so decoherent now. I think that we will just take a break. We'll have a mind break, just like a 2 hour fucking mind break where we will. I mean, if you guys want to talk about that, we'll talk about that. That's fine. But I just think, well, we're really going to talk about the cursed content. Double C, 33. Interesting. Smart Jin. Yes, I am. Okay, so I'm posting, and then we'll start.
No, I had too much fun yesterday already with the timeline. I think we need something different today.
I don't know why the Twitter, the app has been so slow today. It's like so bad. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start it right now. Welcome to motherfucking Grey Lodge. Well, I should have said the F word with my name, but this is the Grey Lodge. There we have King, Chris. Okay, sorry, I'm going to start over. And I will obviously skip all the bullshit that I spoke before. Welcome to the Grey Lodge. I am Jin the fucking Ninja. This is Friday Night Gnostic Mass cursed content. And so to begin this space, which is a plus ultra space, which is a speculative Gnostic space, meaning that if you come through the threshold and you sit here and listen, you also are a speculative Gnostic, and you also are a member of plus ultra. And because these spaces happen in synthesis, they happen in time, and they also happen, obviously, very literally, in space. And as we've discussed many times, space is ruled by the dragon of the eclipse. So I particularly like him, but he is a secondary character to we'll say the hero and the heroine. And the heroine, of course, is the hidden daughter, the untold story, the gospel of love that we did together in 11 fucking arcs. I mean, that's pretty epic. Thousands of listens, thousands. Thousands. Someone listened to me schizo for 3 hours straight on 11 episodes about a speculative idea that I used to dream about and see and think about, and sort of like, I don't know. It was something that I knew was there, but I didn't understand the contours of it. And then letting and doing those gonzo spaces, and that's what they were. They were gonzo spaces. They weren't perfect, but they were beautiful in a way, and they helped me craft the contours of what her story is and what her real gospel is. So you can think it's all bullshit. That's totally okay with me. I believe it. You can take it for what it is. I'm Jin the Ninja. I host a show called Threshold Saints. I'm the guide, maybe the guide to the underworld. Joined by Matt Mora, our Kabbalah and Tarot Bro, and Joshua, the motherfucking branch, who has been doing Joshua is busy. Joshua is shockingly busy. Anyways, Avi, like much love, shout out, Dakini Queen, amazing. Someone who has been here since Space One, I believe, and I don't know, just holds it down, holds it completely down as you know, holds it completely down as a Dakini Queen. So we'll just say that. Um, Percy Fawcett, I don't know you. I guess we follow each other. Awesome. Okay, cool. I'm down. Uh, Dawnland, I've seen you. We follow each other. Awesome, amazing, cool. Always good. Always glad to see new faces. Joseph Reed, like fifth or sixth time maybe, and I didn't just say that to be a do a magic number, but definitely like an honorary lodge member as well as Dawnland, and so we appreciate you. Mookie, official lodge member. Crow Dakini, mother of the birds, the Garudas. I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna start narrating like speculative fiction stories for everybody. Okay, of course we have my buddy, my homie, Chris from the King of Fucking Cups YouTube channel. Everybody check out Chris. I love Chris. Like I think Chris is like amazing. Like he started talking and it's like, yeah. I was like, I get it. I was like, I totally get why Joshua, and I told Chris this like 3 or 4 times, but I was like, I totally get why Joshua like hooked us up because it made sense. It totally made sense. And then we had like a almost 3 hour discussion on Avatar, just the book one. So yeah, upcoming. Okay, so we have Luna. I don't know Luna per se, but I'm sure I do. We follow each other. Awesome, cool, great. Based God. See you, follow you, or I don't follow you, I'll follow you back right now, okay? We have Vanessa V. I like that, VV. It's very plus ultra. So we appreciate you, and then whoever is hiding behind Listen Anonymously, that's what we got. And I'm going to let Matt introduce himself, but first, we are going to read. Or I'm going to read, 2 Gnostic prayers, okay? So the first will be an actual Gnostic prayer from the Epinoia of Nuria, which people may or may not know is a Sethian, sometimes classified as an Ophite, or sometimes classified as a Barbarite. Anyways, if you're interested in this idea of what the classification of Gnostic texts are, I would highly encourage you to go listen to the Aeon of the Daughter series. But for today, we will be reading directly from the text, although I will admit a little bit of it is my own remix. So you can look it up. I'm telling you the name of the text. Please go read it for yourself. Of course, interpret it for yourself in a non-dual way because non-duality really is the keystone of understanding. So go forth and do that. But you're going to get a little Jin remix, okay? So days will come when she will gaze on the pleroma, and she will not abide in paradox, for she commands the quarters of the world and their portion, rectifying the wisdom of the mother and the father of the Word, and his son Adamas, the Epinoia of Nuria. Okay. I hope I did okay, but I'm sure it sounded cool. Okay, so this is totally a Jin. I'm not using myself as in third person to be weird, but I'm just saying I did write it, so I think I can credit myself. But this is a Jin original, but obviously I am drawing from Buddhism and Gnosticism, so take it for what it is. In the name of Diamond Thunder, liberty be thy ray. A birth of stars and their renewal is the fire in the end of days. Daughter of the fortress, in love with the sun, a blazing girl whose name is knowledge and who is the aeon of the victorious one. Yeah, I think that's pretty fucking good, to be honest. And I literally wrote that in like 15 minutes, like probably not even that long. I probably just was like, I heard it in my head, and I was like, I need to work it out right now, and that's, and then it just emerged. Okay, we have Sir Tim of the Tunnels. He is also a fellow lodge member. I really like Sir Tim. I actually have been mutuals with him for quite a while through Ashley, who's also a lodge member. That's where I first heard of Sir Tim. But I actually went to a space or I was invited to speak in a space by Tinfoil Tony, and Sir Tim was there. So that was really the first time we ever spoke. So it was actually really cool to do that. And then now to see him come as like part of the greater lodge, I think that's pretty fucking cool. Anyways, I'm going to let Matt and Joshua introduce themselves. Yes, Joshua, I'm going to let you go. No problem. And then I will start talking about, like, I will give you a synopsis or an outline of what I'm going to discuss, at least my portion. And then, of course, the boys can discuss whatever they want. Matt or Joshua, please go ahead.
Sure. So, Matt Moore here, Kabbalah, Adapt. Really like debating sometimes, as you can see from my timeline. But most importantly than that, I like connecting all the spiritual things, which I happen to call Kabbalah. It's not the Jewish, it's not the Hermetic, it's not the whatever you think it is. You cannot contain it. And yeah, I like doing this kind of stuff. I like bringing tech to all these things as well. So on my website, you can find very little apps from many different ways of things, like astrology, tarot, gematria, a bunch of other stuff. And I am actually open sourcing all of that. So if you happen to know how to code as well, you can play around. Joshua.
Hey, thanks. For the first time, that was an accident when I raised my hand. I was waving that time. But yeah, thank you for hosting again tonight. Sabbat Shalom. We'll be entering into Passover this weekend. So, pretty good topic to talk about this, how the blood of the lamb, acted in a similar way, right? So I'll talk on that a little more later. But anyway, it's good to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk and share knowledge.
Great. Both of you are my homies. I think you're both great. Obviously, check out both of their work. Matt's coming on my show in like a few weeks, even though I'm still a little behind, but it's happening. Joshua is also coming back on my show very soon to talk about Resident Evil. Chris is also coming back for part 2. Obviously, his episode hasn't aired yet, but that's not his fault. That's not really my fault either, because really it's in the 50s and we're not quite there yet. But it will happen when it happens, and I assure you that the show will go on. So, that being said, I'm going to teach you how to make Naga fucking. I don't know if I like that, but I'm going to try and experiment with it. Because I think it's like a little disrespectful to say motherfucking. Like, I don't mind saying it, but it's not like my fave. So I thought Naga fucking, that actually sounds kind of cool, but I don't know. We'll see. Abramelin oil. So I'm gonna talk about how to make it, and I have made it quite a few times. I'm not like an incredibly skilled alchemist, but yes, I do own an iambic. I have I have distilled oils. I have made floral water. I have made many hundreds, maybe thousands of spiritual baths, and probably not thousands, but at least dozens. So that will be definitely a part of greater working, you could say. And the blood of the lamb is really interesting that Joshua brought up, because I will be talking about the blood of the dove and how that fits into Exodus oil. Joshua, please go ahead.
You said Naga fucking, and that reminded me of an old story. I can't remember if Solar were here, he would probably know. But there was a philosopher or a famous intellectual from the past. He was describing two snakes mating, and because the discussion was about whether a man or woman who had more enjoyment, I guess, out of the act or whatever. But anyway, the discussion led to the observation in nature of snakes mating and how they twirled together and stuff. So anyway, I never thought I would ever like bring that up, but anyway, since you mentioned it, I thought, well, there is some historical context, and so maybe you can look for that. I just can't remember the name.
Well, I will say, as a part of the Aeon of the Daughter series, we did actually have maybe not a full episode dedicated to Nagas, but we definitely did a whole episode dedicated to like Rahu, Ketu, the Dragon King, and his relationship with the daughter. So in her story, she actually wears 13. Yes, that number, 13 Naga Kings as her bridal jewelry. So, and in a famous Jain tantric story, there's a very famous Jain tantric. Well, it's not very famous because it's very obscure, but it's a popular tantric story that comes from Jainism, where it discusses her appearance in front of a sage. I don't remember which one, a Mahavira, one of them. I know they don't call them Mahaviras. They always come into my mentions and say, "Oh, Jin, like you don't understand Jainism at all." Well, actually, in Buddhism, we call a lot of heroes Mahaviras simply because that's what it means: the greatest hero, the greater heroes. So it's not. It's really a title. But anyways, in Jainism, it only refers to two specific prophets of theirs. But in Buddhism, it actually refers to a lot of different people. Anyways, regardless. So a famous teacher of Mahavira is sitting on the mangrove beach. So if you understand the idea of the Mahasmashana, meaning the carnal grounds at the end of the world, there are 8 great carnal grounds, but there are really 9, because there's always 9. But there's also another one, a secret +1, who is the witness. That's neither here nor there, but there is how you get 10, which is the completion of the tree. Okay, so in Buddhism, they make this very clear, but in the Temple of Set stuff, they don't make it very clear that there is a witness. It's kind of implied, maybe darkly, but not quite fully articulated. So I just want to say that because I know Joshua and like some of the other, I know Solar, especially, and Solar will be on my show. Solar recorded already a great episode on Evola, and I hope it will be part of a trilogy. I'm really into doing series, as you know. So yeah, that's so that will happen. Okay, I'm gonna let Matt go.
Yeah, just quickly, as you mentioned, the witness, that's also how we get the 13th sign. If you want to dabble into there is a 13th sign or not, that would be it. You have the 12 signs plus the master or the witness, which is the sun, right? The sun passing through the 12 signs.
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, Joshua. But let me shout out Rom because we love Rom. Rom wakes up so early to be part of these spaces. I know he was up an hour ago because I saw him liking things on my timeline. But Singapore is far away. So we appreciate that he, pushes through the early morning haze and comes to speak with us, most of us who are experiencing the evening. It's kind of interesting. Not Tom, Rom is coming from the future in a very literal way, coming to us through space. And we're all synthesizing because you're listening, and some of you are speaking, and I'm speaking. So we're in perception together. We're in witness together. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I was thinking in my mind, can I get a witness? And what's the whole importance of a witness, right? So legally, it's how contracts are validated. Rotary Republic, like for instance, the whole you can become like a signatory person where you witness the signature of a upon a document, for instance. So this whole witness thing, it really does go all the way back to the foundation of the world. There was a silent witness that witnessed that, even. So I do find that whole thing very compelling, and it reminds me too of something that King and I talked about earlier today, was the standing stones. And in some cases, they were erected as a witness to like covenants and things like that with God, etc.
Doesn't it make perfect sense? It's very Mithraic. The foundation is your witness. That is the desk upon which you write the treaty. Right? Because you could write a treaty at any you could write a treaty at any table. You could write a treaty in any capacity. You don't even need to be at a desk. But I think that if you look at how a modern Western desk looks, with two pillars, someone sitting in between as the third pillar on a foundation of a chair which has four legs, exactly the same as described in Kabbalah, as described in Buddhism, the four pillars at the base of the world. You're writing, so you're engaged with Hod, you're engaged with Mercury, but you're also engaged with Binah because it's the scroll with the black text on it, right? So, in many ways, the witness is you, and it is also the Magi. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I also was thinking as you were describing the table, oftentimes if you're chairing a meeting, you'll sit at the head of the table. And so you're right, there is that middle emphasis there a lot of times with whoever happens to be in that authority type setting. And earlier also you mentioned something that intrigued me about the hidden third, or maybe it wasn't 13th, but there was a certain number you said, like there was a hidden element that represented the middle pillar. I was curious, would that be rooted in like Malkuth, or like where's the foundation of that pillar at exactly? I was thinking about that too. And one of the other things we mentioned on earlier episode today with King was the center of a clock is kind of like representative of the top-down view of a standing stone, and then the hands of the clock are like the shadows that go across, as the day changes with the movement of the sun. So Ram has a different position on his sundial than we do, yet we're still both in the present moment, right? So time, in a sense, is kind of relative to the sun here too, and I kind of see that central point. And the clock, it is relative to it is the 13th in that sense, right? So I agree with Matt there. You got the 12 hours and then the 13th in the middle, but without it, there's no relation to what hour we're on, right? So I even kind of wonder if there's like an axis element there. But yeah, thanks for letting me weave on that a little bit.
No, absolutely, Joshua. I mean, that's why we have why it's usually like the four boys, or like, and it's not, we're not mean like that. We let the girls if they want, or whomever, but it's usually the four boys. So, obviously tonight we're down solar. So we have a couple room shout outs. So we have La Bianca, so My Mutual, Cutlery Drawer, awesome, great to see you. And we also have a new person, Emerald Archives. So I'm not quite sure. I'm welcome. Okay, so this is a plus ultra space. We believe magic's real. It's not a question of is it. It's just a question of what is it, and it's also a question of how to use it, and how to use it very specifically in a technological way, or at least to grasp the ideas in their essential core, so then you can apply them to posting, that you can apply them to social media, that you can apply them to your life. Because, as I always say, the way you live your life, that is your great work. That's your greatest work. Okay? So, okay, Joshua, you brought up some really interesting things. I heard a question from Matt, and I'm sure he wants to answer. And I am going to bring Matt back up as co-host because I saw that he had a thing. Okay, so Matt, Joshua. Oh yes, so we're going to bring Chris up. Okay, we'll bring Chris up, no problem. There we have 4, so that's perfect. Yod He Vav He. I'm not the princess, by the way. Maybe, that's fine. I'll be that, whatever. I'll embody it because I do a Dakini practice, so it totally makes sense for me, right? Matt can be the prince. Joshua's obviously the daddy. And it's not really fair to make King the queen, but it could be an interesting thing you could say because his logo is green and black. So there's a Binah Netzach interrelationality with those two colors. And so you could say that he's maybe the Klipa of the queen. So we'll say that for today.
I was thinking like the suits, King of Cups is the hearts, right? So yeah, that kind of fits.
I mean, think of it in Tantra. It's like the Time King. It's Mahakala. I mean, you can get really. There's almost no better character. Everybody loves a Mahakala, the Time King. So
Well, that's funny. If you have a second, I've done like characters on live streams before, where I've made up certain roles where I say I wear many hats, and I put on a hat and I create a different character. And one of my most famous characters that I've done on a live stream was called Lana Del Cana, which was a play on Lana Del Rey, and I was kind of spoofing and channeling the dark, like priestess, dark goddess kind of energy. And I had just like shaven my head and shaven all my facial hair off, so I was very kind of like more in an androgynous appearance. And I had a veil on, and like I was in like kind of this like dark goddess queen energy, and I was doing it as like, again, I was playing a character, and it went over quite well. Like, out of all my characters, for some reason that's the one that everyone that followed me would continue to reference and everything. So I think there's something there what you're talking about with the king and the queen, Jen.
awesome. Thanks, Chris. That was really great. And there's really no method to the madness of how we conduct the space. We're a very well behaved space in general. But yeah, that's fine. Just jump in whenever. And if you have something interesting to say, please just interrupt, jump in. Matt knows. Like sometimes I'm mercurial is I think a good word. So the boys raise their hand, like their hand emoji thing, but honestly, it's totally fine. If it's just us, it's fine. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, just very interesting that my week's tarot card is the Knight of Cups in this case, which in the Mythic deck is Perseus. But I was gonna answer Joshua. He asked about the fourth column. So I think it's the Enneagram guys. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name, Jurdif or whatever. They like to claim that his stuff was the fourth way or whatever, which you could say is like behind the middle pillar. So you have three columns and then the one behind them. But I don't know. This is my opinion, but then you kind of come back to a cube, and to me, the beauty of a third way is that you break out of the cube. You synthesize everything. So if you have a fourth way, then again you come back to a fourth thing. You come back to duality. Maybe not the place you want to go, but with the Merkaba, which happens to be also the other card I got this week, the Chariot, we do have four columns, which are then we have the four suits, four elements, four cardinal directions, so on and so forth. So that's a very interesting way to see it as well.
Okay, Joshua, I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to respond to something Matt said. So, yeah, you're totally correct, Matt, is that the four takes us back to, like, the Sefer, or the Zohar. That's really what it takes us back to, like a much more classical Jewish way to explain kind of the universe and its formulation, although it's using a little bit of a higher, maybe not a higher Sefer, but it's really focused on Yesod and Yesodic consciousness, etc., etc. So, absolutely, there are four pillars, but as I've often said, who is the center pillar? The center pillar is you, the Magi. So you are really the fifth. You're really the perceiver. You're really the witness. That's kind of what I was also kind of getting at. So it's the 4 and the 5. The 4 and the 5 are what? Hesed, Gevra, in synthesis. Where do they rectify? Well, no, I shouldn't say in synthesis. Where do they rectify? Yesod. So it's really the fifth rising up into death, but you're on Yesod because that's where you're standing. So I think that also answers something that Joshua asked: is like, where are you? You only are at Yesod. We're all at Yesod. We don't all know it. We don't all have the consciousness to recognize it. The consciousness at Yesod is very hard to. It takes a lot of work to dwell there, consistently. Okay, but it is, in my opinion, a little easier than Tiferet consciousness, Christ consciousness, if you want to call it that. So it's a good preparatory base. That's why Yesod is the foundation. It's the base. So if we can develop that Yesod consciousness, then we can recognize ourselves as the fifth pillar, but only when that happens, right? Because you have to be in dialectical relationship with all four pillars. And I agree with Matt about Gurdjieff. Like, okay, Gurdjieff's fine. It feels very fucking boomer to me. I know I'm swearing. Okay. Feels very like old troon to me. I'm not saying it's not cool, whatever. I mean, I practice Buddhism, practice Vajrayana, I practice Tantra. For me, we've already explained this. This is like this is old troon shit. It's like we're moving forward with how I've obviously articulated the Kalpas moving. I like, there we have Beth, Flower Power Beth, Indiana Joe as well. Just came in a few minutes ago. Great to see you. King Ethan, I see you are friends with Joshua. Great to see you. Okay. Sorry about that. So the 4 and the 5. So if everything's rectified in Yesod, that's only the 9, correct? So we have to go higher. What is also at Yesod? At Yesod is also the threshold to where? Death. It's what every magician wants. They always talk about it, at least. Crossing the abyss, riding the dragon. Well, that's possible from Yesod. You don't have to go to Tiferet. Where Tiferet prepares you for, in my opinion, even though I have admitted that this is a very difficult sphere for me in general, despite what some may say, I'm not an egoic person. I'm just not. Do I think I'm funny and witty and a good writer? Yes. Do I think I do interesting things? Yes. But egoic, no. I'm much more Yesodic. Yesodic consciousness has its own pitfalls, just like Tiphoretic consciousness has. Tiphoretic consciousness tends to be a little more dualistic. You tend to perceive yourself as the I am, and you tend to forget that's not really where your consciousness is supposed to be. I'm not disagreeing. I like Christian Kabbalah the most. I'm saying, but even as we've discussed, the Sacred Heart, it's not where your consciousness is. It's your skull cup is at death. So you need to go higher. In my opinion, Tipperite is much harder to access death, even though there can be an access through that consciousness. Okay? So in my opinion, this is obviously just how I like to do it. Prepare the Yesodic consciousness, prepare the foundation, and then you can move up to death. But I don't also like to be, there's Nick from the Occult fucking Rejects. We've been doing awesome shows too, by the way. I have to say, like, thank you to Nick for allowing me on the panels to do Toby fucking Chapel. Who else have we done? Gordon fucking White. We did the tarot card reader. She's like a big deal, and I'm forgetting her name. Anyways, we've done some really great shows, and we still have like shows coming up that people haven't even heard. So, you know, subscribe to the YouTube. But okay, so Yesodic consciousness, going to death. Okay, so in my opinion, that's the easiest, not easiest perhaps, but yeah, maybe the easiest for our Aeon. I think Yesodic consciousness, cross the threshold, go to death, cross the abyss, ride the lightning since Nick's in the room, and yeah, see what you can do. But I also don't think that you should stay at death, because death has a deadening effect. It can be it can be a place that absorbs the lightning, a kind of adamantite ball. I've even described this on both Rejects and my show, that there's something that's dead about it. It's you. You have to perceive it. You have to come into understanding of it. You have to come into perception of it. You have to bring the flame, the lightning of consciousness and of, okay, you could say Hesed, or you could say like Hod, or you could say you're bringing the lightning with you. You're bringing the flame of consciousness with you. You're bringing synthesis with you, but you're also trying to do it there. So it makes it a very difficult sphere, and you can see this with a lot of ortho bros too, because they really love. I'm not calling you out, Joshua, and I know that you're not quite an ortho bro, but I do think it's interesting that a lot of ortho bros do tend to focus very heavily in their system on death. And it often there is something spiritually ignorant about death. Like, I like death, I'm saying, like, as a death enjoyer, totally agreeing, but I'm saying there is something kind of it's not deadening, yes, deadening and dulling. I think that's a good word, because it kind of restricts you from, there's just something that happens there in synthesis, in consciousness, in perception, that is complicated, and it's a lot to handle. I think that's pretty much in summation. And please, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to expand on that, because you can also see that as like one of its origins, the word of duat from the Egyptians. So it's kind of a underworld they have. So like you're saying, it's a very like eerie place. It's not a place that you maybe want to spend a lot of time on. It's very important, obviously, but it's also a way. It's like a portal to the death tree, so you can sometimes maybe get the wrong door back. You know what I mean? So you really gotta know what you're doing if you're gonna play around that. But it's very interesting, because if you see it as the duat, then you have the double atman. So again, it's very like it's very high in the tree as well. So probably not necessarily something you want to keep using while here a lot of times, because, well, you are in a grosser environment. So it's different place, let's say, you can do with it.
100%. And I want to say something in response to that, Matt, is that I think the Catholics actually have a good. Oh, and I want to shout out Monty, nice boy Monty, lodge member, weeb, podcaster, writer, poet, awesome dude, homie of the homies. And Monty actually has an episode in queue on my show, waiting to air on Freerin. So if you're into that's our third part of our anime, our occultism and anime series on anime and the occult. So if you're interested in that, Monty let me go a little wilder on that one than I usually have. So thank you, Monty. Okay. So yes, I completely agree, Matt. I think that's why I think Yesod. I think go to Yesod. If you're there, you can sort of stand before. There's a metaphor. I'm using a metaphor. Okay, you stand before the threshold and you look through into the blackness, but the blackness is not just black. It also has maybe imperceptible light, which is also maybe you could say stars, like the vast expanse of space. So you can also draw from that. There's a potentiality there where you don't have to cross, but you can just draw from. Again, Yesodic consciousness, just as Sephirotic consciousness, has its klipos. So Yesodic consciousness means that you are going to get hidden enemies. People are going to talk shit about you, and people are going to sort of cast aspersion upon you. That's kind of the klipa of that. If you are the path of the saint, they're going to try and tar you. That's a perfect analogy. In fact, it's probably Kabbalistic in origin. Tar and feathering. And that's the path of the saint. So that is very difficult. But the path of the saint can also relate to the path of the magician. Just depends. Just as the opposite side of the tree, Hod to Tiferet, that can also be the devil. As Nick has many times said, the chains are under your control. Your hands are unbound. They're free. It's only your neck that's bound. You're bound by your own desires. You're bound by your own egoic consciousness. It's up to you, right? So that is also, but what I'm saying is something we talked about last week, is like leaning over to the what we'll call the left pillar for right now. You're leaning a little over to that to access those polarities at Hod, right? So you're going to bring it back. You're going to also bring the light from Netzach because you have to, because that's how formation occurs, right? You're going to bring those two things, electricity and light together at Yesod, which is sound, which is vibes, right? It's the reverberation, kind of like the drumbeat of the universe. And you're going to make something of that. And you can do that right here. So we even spoke about this last time, how this is actually a really good Sephira for right now. And also there's Cassandra. So Cassandra is a great mutual I have. I just want to shout her out because I don't know if she's ever come to a space, but welcome, Cassandra. She is a tarot reader. She has her own content that she makes, and she also has jewelry. So if you're interested, check out Cassandra. Okay, so Yesodic consciousness and how to bring it into synthesis. So I think this is the Sephira for our Aeon. If you want my real opinion, this is my real opinion. I think that we have to, but again, do not just, you can be on the path of the saint, but you also have to be a little bit on the path of the devil. And you also have to be a little bit on the path of the magician, and you also have to be a little bit on the path of the fool. Maybe those are even the four pillars that you could use in a conceptual way to describe the four pillars of Yesod. Okay, Joshua, please go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciate that explanation because I think I better understand it now. Because the reason that the pillar is invisible is because it's not yet created, I guess. And so the act of creation or manifestation is your living practice. Everything you do every day, every habit, etc., that forms your foundation, so to speak. And so I was thinking about the foundation itself in comparison to the rest of the building. It's lackluster. It maybe doesn't have all the things that we would consider beautiful, but it has strength and functionality. And so you have to repeat something over and over and over again in order to create the foundation. And so I think the way we can look at Yesodic consciousness is, what are we doing? What habits do we have that benefit us versus maybe a habit that is detrimental? And so the good habits would be like laying a good foundation, perhaps. So that was just something that came to mind. But one final thought was, Matt was mentioning the 3 and 4 thing, how he wanted to get away from triangles or threes or whatever. Well, but I was thinking, really what's happening with the square and the 3 there is, if you if you pluck the square in the middle and pull it up, you create a pyramid, just like the icon in my emoji, like my avatar there. And so you're actually adding a dimension to the 4. And so it's not it's not regressive in that you're going back to the 2D 3, but you're adding a dimension. So it's kind of like when you finish an octave and go to the next octave, perhaps. And so I think because of the Separate tree is divided the way it is, it's like each time it's being kind of pinched and pulled up a little bit. And I kind of see Dat as being that at the top. And because that's like where the veil is, right? And so if you imagine like having a veil over the wedding bride, it protrudes where the nose is. So that would be like kind of that same element there. And the nose, the smell was the only sense not involved in the fall of Adam and Eve in the story. All the other senses were, but not smell. So I've always thought that was strange, and I've wondered how the smell or nose may relate to gnosis. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but
I'll just answer that really quick, and then I'm going to let Chris go and then Matt go. There are 5 sense pleasures, you could say, or 5 sense. That's how it would describe in Tantra. There's 5 sense organs and 5 sense pleasures. Okay, so there you have your 5 right there, Joshua. And so you're totally right, because what is Yesod? It's the 4 rectified in the 5, or the 5 rectified in the 4. It's the 9, right? It's also time to bring up a point you brought up about the sundial, how Ram is in the future. I made the joke, and because he's in Singapore, obviously, and you mentioned about the shadows and the sundial. Well, that's what Yesod is. It's like that's what the moon is. It's the rectification of the 3 of time, and then also of the Father, right? Just like the Epinoi of Nuria, just like that I read the very beginning of the space, and it's also the rectification of the wisdom of the Mother. Now you could say the wisdom of the Mother is at Hokmah, or you could say it's at Netzach. Either's fine. I know Netzach is usually classified as like a male energy, but I think we've made a case in our like extended series of spaces that there's both energies always at the Sephira. And maybe there are ways to distinguish it and discern it. That's obviously broader than our topic tonight. But I think that you could make that argument. So it's the rectification of those things. And so in bringing it into witness, like bringing it into witness. So something's happening before you in your perception, but you're also applying your will to it. Single pointed, like the tent pole that you brought up. Why in voodoo do they have this exact same concept, the poitou mitin? Why is that? Well, it makes perfect sense. It's the central pillar, it's a central axis. It's what turns the wheel. Time is only one wheel, right? It's not the whole thing, but what is also time? Time is, as you said, Joshua, it's a conceptual marker. Time is just in your mind, right? You carry time with you through space. You don't carry, time isn't, you are not a passive agent you're not a passive recipient of time. You can be a creator of your own time. It's like, how do you want to spend your time? Exactly what you said about habituation and habits. It's a big part of Yesod. If you can't break those bad or sinful habits, obviously I'm using more of that kind of like a Hasidic lens, but it's still useful, right, as a conceptual layer. Like if you break all those little rules, then how are you going to regulate your schedule, regulate your day? I'm not saying that anyone has to be Hasidic. I love Sachi, but it's not like that. But I'm just saying that just look at them and see how they're doing it, because they're better at Kabbalah than me, and I'm fairly decent. So, that's okay to just be like, yeah, they're doing something right. Maybe there's an idea there that is correct. It's just like with, Christianity or Orthodoxy. Can totally agree that they're doing something really fucking interesting, that they're showing interesting things, and that's the same thing with all the, even the left hand path stuff. I don't agree with doing it, but as conceptual ideas, it's part of this whole process of understanding. bringing it into synthesis and being like, actually don't need to do all this like little pedantic bullshit that they're, on about all the time. But there's actual ideas there that are really interesting that could be maybe rectified or could be maybe cared for. Because how do you care for seeds? Is that you have to treat them with attention, will, care, love. Okay, I know. I went on forever. Okay, Chris, please go ahead, and then Matt.
Yeah. Well, two things. The first thing is when the branch mentioned like having your routine, and that always reminds me of in Stoicism, one of their sayings is that you're not your virtues. Like you can have your virtues. You can say I'm about X, Y, and Z. You can say that you're this great standing person. You can have all these ideas of the man that you want to be, or the woman you want to be, or whoever, and that doesn't really mean anything. What what who you are is the things that you constantly do, what your habits are, and so that stuck out to me as because that's so close to what the Stoics say. But what I originally raised my hand to say was when we were talking about going from like the 2D to the 3D, that was actually something that the Branch and I talked about earlier today as well. Um, and when we was talking about the pillars, I always draw back to pop culture references on my channel for the more layman terms of things, and what I reference when it comes to going through these multiple dimensions is the movie Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, when Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, is trying to describe what the Spider-Verse is to Miles, who's the newcomer to the group. And they're in like this holodeck algorithmic space, and he has this whole presentation that starts off with this it being a black void, and then a little glowing dot appears, and he says, "This is everything," and that's like again to go back to the Stoics. That's what they would refer to as the logos spermatica, or the primordial seed. And then in the scene, it drops to the ground and it gets planted. So it goes from this 1D dot to this 2D tree. And it's very, tree of life. It's the Yggdrasil, of course. And then, and that's when he starts talking about timelines. And then when he starts talking about the multiverse, it expands again, and the tree becomes what in the Spider-Man comics they refer to as the webs of fate and destiny, and that's what all the spider people guard. Um, and I have multiple videos on my channel where I talk about the sacred symbology of the spider and the weavers and all this from across cultures. But I think that scene, it's like a minute or two long scene. It's probably one of the best pop culture references for people that need a visual aid of what we're talking about here when it comes to shifting between the different dimensions. So I just wanted to mention that.
That was great. Thank you, Chris. Awesome. We do talk a lot about pop culture. Obviously, I was in the mood to go hard, like right away. So absolutely, please bring it. Matt, please go ahead.
Yes. So as you guys were talking about Yesod, I went on a little train here. I was noting things down so I wouldn't forget. Basically, let's take Yesod as the foundation, right? If you want to go up the tree, so you're in Mokut, you are, let's say, a nobody in arts, and you want to become a good artist, let's say a musician. So you are in Mokut, you don't know anything. The first thing you need to do if you want to elevate is go through Yesod, where you will need to find many masters. Why? Because if you want to go to Tiferet, which is your essence, you need to first go through where the light is shining and you cannot see yet. So like the moon doesn't have its own light, it just reflects the sun. So you have to look at the moon. So these masters, you may even try to find 108 masters first. So then you start going up the tree again. So for example, you would find if you want to play the guitar, you want to see different guitar players play, and then you're going to say, oh, this guy, I like it. This guy, maybe not so much. This guy, yeah, it's okay. And what you're doing is you're reflecting on them what you like that you were gonna expand on when you come to Tiferet, right? And then you go to Hod, Netzah, and so on. I'm not gonna explain all of them. But if we are going through Yesod, another idea here that we have is that is the moon. And if we go on the tarot, at least the system that I use, the moon card is related to Aquarius. So again, we have the hidden enemies as well in this card, and we have the new Aeon, right? Aeon of the daughter, as Jin likes to say. We also have the moon being the 18th card, which comes back to the 9, which is also Yesod. And then we have again the Council of 9. We have the 9 tribes of giants. We have the 9 angelic cores, so on and so forth. We have Yggdrasil. And another very interesting thing is that if we go from Yesod to Tiferet, the path between them, at least from the system that I use, we have the Devil card, which is one of the things we're going to talk about in the spaces today, about curses, right? So see how everything is kind of related. It's very interesting here. I was making notes while you guys were talking. And just one quick note on Kings, talking about spiders. There's this idea of, I call it the Orion's Hunter. So imagine this guy trying to keep you up in this dream state that we all are. And a lot of people see it as like a spider-like thing. So maybe if you go and do some like jungle medicine, you're likely to encounter something like this. So that's very interesting. I don't know if you've ever been, if you ever saw something similar, but if not, then that's something you could take a look.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate all your notes. I think that's, Matt uses a slightly different version of the tarot compared to the, like, applied to the tree than I am. I'm obviously not a tarot person. I've said this a million times. I'm really not a tarot person, and I'm not an astrologer. But I do understand the Sephirotic correspondences, we'll say. So I understand what Matt is saying, and I hope that you will go look at the cards that he mentioned, just so you can see if you can find those same correspondences, at least in the outer density. I think that's an interesting exercise. It's also why a lot of the people with Patreons. I don't have a Patreon. I know I got accused yesterday of selling services. But I really don't sell services. I have no intention to ever sell services. I don't want to. I mean, it's not going to ever be my life. Okay. I have no problem with it. If that's what you want to do, all the power to you. Like, do as I will. But for me, it's never going to be what I'm never going to do that. Okay. But I will say they love to talk about, anyways, I'm going to let Joshua go. I'm sorry. I'll try and reformulate, because Matt brought up some really interesting things. But then also, Joshua, I did want to say this before you go, is that the 5. So if you look at, and thank you, Matt, for referencing Aeon of the Daughter. Obviously, I reference it all the time, almost nonstop. But I think it's true. So it makes sense. So if you look at a iconography of one of the forms of her in Buddhism, she has the flower. So this is true for Mary Magdalene. This is true for her. This is obviously true for the other princess that I posted today, Princess Bari, who comes from Korean shamanism, or another daughter, you could say. So the flower. So in Buddhism, we describe it as a 5-petal flower. Obviously, it's also Rosicrucian, right? So it's pink. The flower must be pink, because in pink, the spectral color allows the truth to emerge in it and around it. It gives contour to the truth, both in it and arising from it. So, what is the truth, quote unquote, in a 5-petaled flower? Well, it is the crown or the corona, right? It's like the rising gold part comes off the flower, rises into the sky like an axis mundi. You could think of it as that. So that's why I like Yesod, because I think it's a basis for both of those things. So you're in perception, which is Hesed, and you're also in, it's really more in will. That's how I'm going to describe it. That's not quite it, but that's the part you're kind of taking from Gevra. You're taking that Rajasic, fiery energy and you're going to push, you're going to lift off. That's exactly what a flower does. If you understand like how the energetic internalities of in a biological way, that's what a flower does. It kind of lifts itself off, right? Like the metaphor for Buddhism is what? Like the lotus seed grows in a pool of mud. Well, why is that? Because it requires the murkiness to sort of come up into the world towards what? Towards the light, towards the blue, quote unquote. But we know the sky's not really blue. It's clear. Both night sky and day sky, they're both clear, like ice, like lightning, but they appear blue. So that's what it's rising up to. It's rising up, unfurls, it's unprepared, unmanifest, then it manifests. It opens, right? Just like Matt was talking about, Yesod is where you prepare the consciousness. So that's why it's a great place to be. But of course, yeah, it has its issues. We can also see from people who tend to be at Yesodic consciousness that they tend to develop messianic complexes. This is very common for Yesodic people. You can see it across like a spectrum of like different practices, different sort of applications of the tree. It results in like you're a little droyon, as I like to say, like a little crazy wisdom. And then you're also, but then it can go too much. It can go too much where you think you have to resolve, right? Because Yesod is also about tohu and tikkun. It's a big part of Yesod. It's rectification rather than reformation, which is more tiferatic, right? So you have to destroy and you have to create, and it kind of has to be in synthesis. That's really how, in my opinion, that's how Yesod is at its highest function. You're bringing it constantly, consistently. You're not. This is something Joshua said that I thought was really interesting. How I've often described it is that the daughter's never in fixed. She's never fixed at Yesod. It's in flux, an aeon in flux. She is dancing. She's dancing upon the demon or Mara of lust, of desire. You could say it's the all 5 even under her. And that's even what her arrow does. It remediates the 5 poisons, the 5 Maras, which are lust, ignorance, greed, aversion, and envy. So the reality is like Yesod can be used to rectify it, but maybe it's not like the rocket launcher. Like maybe it's not the most powerful. Like whoa, you're just like you're maybe you're riding the dragon, but it's like a little one. It's like it's like maybe not a 7-year dragon. Maybe it's like a 1-year dragon. So it's just it's not limited, but you have to be a little more creative. That's a great sort of keyword. You could say, I know you guys are talking about angles and so kind of slyly referencing all the Temple of Set stuff, which is fine. I know both of you have read it. I mean, we talk about it all the time. But we can just look at it as more conceptual, right? It's just conceptual, strictly conceptual. But yeah, that's what it does. It rectifies all those things that come up. And as Matt and I have often discussed on other spaces, you don't need the klipa. The klipa are already there. They're literally already there. You will incur the same karmic whatever implication. You will incur the same feelings of wrath, anger. Or wrath was the other poison. I think I said aversion. I'm sorry, it was wrath. That was stoner brain. Okay, so that's why. So, but you kind of have to you have to make sure that you're a capable vehicle. That's the other thing, and that's where Tiferet is stronger. That's as Matt said, it prepares your essence. It's where the golden vessel is forged through the fire and through the water, alchemical process, and it's empty because it's essence. What is inside is essence. That's why I like to say Path 22, it's love. Love is the essence because love really is sort of the formation of all things. Jupiter, you could say in a very crude way, Hesed, that's a much more encompassing way. But it's not the finality, it's not the terminus, it's the infinity, right? It's the thing that keeps us going. Yes, Matt, please go ahead.
Yeah, just very quickly, since it's also kind of related to the today's topic about curses and whatever. The thing is, you can work with sephiroths. You can work with the spheres. You cannot work with cliffas. The cliffas work with you. If you think you're gonna, oh, I'm gonna be the bad boy, I'm gonna do all the, black stuff, and it's not you. It's like you think you can control these higher things, but when you're talking about cliffas, you cannot really control them. You're just, as it says, the name, it's a tree of death. You're just getting closer to death each time you interact more. And at some point, you're just, think about it in human terms. If you start doing the, basic stuff, I don't like naming because, again, it attracts this kind of things. But let's say you start working with not so legal things. It starts with the simple thing, right? Maybe you lie here, you cheat here, and so on. Eventually, if you keep doing that, you're going to have to live with that in mind. So either you're gonna be killed by it, either you're gonna be arrested by it. Like you have to live with that now. It's not something you can just, oh yeah, I'm gonna stop. I'm in the middle of the big guys here doing all the bad shit, and I'm just tomorrow gonna end up, doing something else. It doesn't work like that. Now you're in the game. So again, it's very sure steady to understand how it's used. But if you think you're gonna control the cliffas, I have bad news. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's actually not useful for most people even to look at the ideas. It's useful for some people if they're more advanced, I think. If you're over 40 and you want to look at I'm not even saying you have to be over 40 or a man or a rabbi. The klibas are not meant for people who have any kind of, if you have doubts or like a weakness of consciousness, and I'm not casting an aspersion on anyone, like literally I have doubts, insecurities, weaknesses of my own. But if you have that and it's like a pervading thing in your life, maybe a reoccurrent thing, we're talking about habits and habituation, how like time is resolved also at Yesod. So if you have those, it's going to just pull you in deeper. It's going to densify the aggregations around you because you are going to be making the aggregations as you go through the density. And the problem with doing the tree of death, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying for most people, is that you are going to mistake the outer husk for the inner knowledge because that is exactly how they're intended to work. It's you're not special. Like I'm not special. I'm not saying I am. I'm not saying it is what it is. Everybody will get stuck at some point with them, just like Matt said, whether of your own making or of like a magical, like whatever you're doing down there. And I'm not saying you can never do it. I'm just saying that it's a snare. That's like Joshua often talks about, like the snare. Like that's what we call it. It's a scandalon. It's a klipa. It's a skanda. I mean that's what it means. It means a trap, a husk. A true klipa is not evil. A true klipa is just the clay vessel. It's just it's just the vessel that you use. It's like the name you call something. That's a klipa. So if you call me Jin, that's a klipa. But that's not bad. You need something to contain what I am or who I am or whatever. That's fine. It's the aggregation that's the problem. It's like the adding of poisons to something that's pristine, you could say, in the inside. It's like I think one of the favored biblical references, especially in the Old Testament, is spoiled oil or spoiled wine. Well, why do you think they're using those metaphors? That's a very interesting. Yes, I know it's Mediterranean and Levantine and all that. Of course, yes, that's a part of it. But okay, the Bible's a metaphor. We all know this. That's fine. So they're really talking about klipas, but they're talking about. Okay, so I'm thinking of like I think it's Psalm 104 or Psalm 74. I can't remember, but he talks about like breaking. He has to break. God has to break through his angels. So he's sending light through the clouds. That's even how the psalm describes it. And he like breaks the vessel, and the oil pours out, the rancid oil, right? Because that's what you should be doing. That's what you should be doing to yourself. It's kind of a self-reflection, like Matt brought up, how Yesod or the moon, quote unquote, is a reflection of light. What is the reflection of your light? Wouldn't that make sense? There's a mirror-like quality, right? Like even to a pearl, which is often like it's the metaphor for the moon. Anyways, I'm gonna let Chris go. He's been really patient, and then Matt will go.
Yeah, I forget exactly what you said, Jen, earlier, but you mentioned fire, and it reminded me of something that in our video or in our discussion in our over Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of the things that I was kind of picking at is this idea of Aang and Zuko being two sides of the same coin, as the saying goes, but also they're doing, the Joseph Campbell's hero journey and all that, but they're different, and I think that's where we get to what you talk about with the different paths of the um in Kabbalah, and the Sephirah and all that, and Zuko's path is what I would refer to as one of fire and ash, not just because of his nation he belongs to, but um, he goes through uh, his pain, his turmoil. He fails. He falls on his face. He's literally burned, and that is very akin to what people like Robert Bly, um, and he has a book called Iron John, a book about men, and it's a book that he wrote in the 90s about the wild man archetype and energies and rites of passage and initiation rituals. And the reason why he calls it Iron John is because he's referencing the Grimm's fairy tale Iron Hans, and in that story, is a prince at one point loses his as a child loses his golden ball and rolls into a cage where the king is holding the wild man prisoner, and uh, the young prince over many years goes up to the cage and asks the wild man for his golden ball back. Um, and Robert Bly uses it in the book as a metaphor of that little spark in our childhood that we always are searching for as adults. So whatever you lost in your childhood, is what you'll be driven to be looking for as an adult, and that's how Robert Bly mentions it. Um, but he also refers to it as the path of ashes because it's the prince losing all his, you know, golden chalices and golden material and having to approach the wild man, learn from the wild man, and be burned and learn how to be okay with his scars and his bruises So I just wanted to bring that up because when you're talking about fire and all these different paths, that's what it reminds me of, and I refer to it as the 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 descending path because you're descending downwards into ash and fire to ascend up. Of course, you got the metaphor of the phoenix, which is separate than, say, and going back to the Avatar: The Last Airbender as the example, Aang as the main hero goes on. I think, Jin, you would refer to it as the saint path, right? He's ascending upwards all the time, and so I just wanted to mention that the different paths and how you can have different roles and your paths will cross eventually, and maybe, because Zuko is also, I would refer to him as the anti-hero, right? Uh, but he has qualities of a prince and a hero, but also as a villain, because in the beginning he is the antagonist, and uh, he has all these other modalities he drifts into, and that is it, what you're describing. That's what reminds me of. So I just wanted to mention this idea of ashes and the path of fire, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I totally agree with you. Aang's the Prince of Air. Zuko is a prince. We could call him a Prince of Fire. But as you very well said, he's an anti-hero as well. He embodies both things. So Monty even had a post about this. I'm sorry, Monty, to draw attention to you, but I'm sure he loves it secretly. But he had a post about this. It's like, be the villain. Okay, sometimes you have to be. It's not about being provocation. It's not about don't be like me. And don't think that I'm always embodying the villain. I usually embody the trickster. That's a little more interesting. But no, the villain is not who you always think it is, right? Because the villain, if we're saying it comes from Gevra, even if it's like the left hand of God, Samael, whatever, it's still of God. So what are the principles of Gevra? Okay, discernment. You're looking. I'm going to bring Monty up. You're looking. You're perceiving mercy, but you're also portioning it out. So you're deciding like how much am I going to give? Where should it go? And you're determining the polarity. Remember, Hesed has a polarity as well of lightning, smiting. That might be a klipa, but also you can use the klipas sometimes that appear in the Sephira. So I'm not saying to climb the tree of death or whatever. I don't agree. I don't think that you should. That's my opinion, but do as thou will. But I think you can use the klipas as they appear in the Sephira sometimes to help clear obstacles on the path. Just like Chris was saying, that your paths have to cross sometimes, right? You don't cross live wires, but maybe sometimes you do. I think that's kind of interesting. Anyways, Matt, I know you've been really patient, and then Monty.
Yeah, so you brought up the idea of metaphors, right? And the naming. So how the name is important. So if you think about it, a metaphor, and it's a carry, right? If you try to go to the etymology, it's like carrying something or whatever. But if you Kabbalistically deconstruct it, it's a meta amphor. An amphor, it's kind of like a vessel, those Greek vessels that you had stories on them. So it's, like you said, it's something that you use to contain. And when you cannot contain it, it breaks and it becomes empty, becomes the klifa, the husk, whatever, right? When it's contained, or when it's, let's say, maybe pristine, it's the Sephiroth. But when you cannot contain it, then it becomes a husk. And the name, as we are going to talk, maybe, or something similar, is also, in a way, how you can curse things. Because think about it. If you name your child something, if you name him like weak or whatever, some variation of a thing that can suggest that he's weak, guess what? Now your children is going to have this burden, this curse on their name. And that's how you even use you can use this to your advantage to not curse but bless things, right? You can call them good things. But I even know like some people would try to, I'm not sure right now which culture it is, that they would like call your name backwards in a way to try and destroy you, because if your name created you, then your name backwards would destroy you, kind of like a programming thing, right? It's again always come back to this idea of programming reality. So, and even if we go to, because in English maybe it's not the best for this, but if you go to Portuguese or like Latin languages, you have as we call it, maldição. So it's like it's the bad saying. Again, comes back to the name, comes back to using your voice, the abracadabra, the mage. We are creating things with the voice. So you can even use that again, like I said, to create the blessings as well. So that's why you got to be very aware of the words you use. Like if you keep using bad words for things, for yourself especially, then well, you're constantly creating your own hell. So that's the something you gotta be very attentive. Like again, comes back to the moon, to the hidden enemy. Like you are your own hidden enemy at the end of the day. So if you keep learning to yourself and putting yourself down, you are bringing up maybe not the best paths for you. So bring light to that.
Yes, I will let you go, Joshua, in a moment. I want to say, yeah, that was 100% great, Matt. A gold star for you. You make me proud. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm my own worst enemy, so I totally understand this. Like, there is no more hidden enemy than me. 100% correct. Couldn't disagree. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Also agree with what you said about like the naming of things, and but also it's also different. This is where Yesodic consciousness is a little obscurant, we'll say. Just like a pearl doesn't perfectly reflect light, right? It's a little obscured from reality. So this is where you need the Hasidic consciousness, right? Because you have to be in full perception. But Hesed doesn't work by itself. Hesed and Gebra always must work together, always in synthesis. It's like dynamic. It's like William's, or not William, Joshua's favorite thing, the Vajra, right? It's a figure eight. Okay, so just think of it like that. That's exactly how they should function. That doesn't mean they do function like that. Remember, just conceptual. But it should be a figure eight, and the point of the eight should be like the polarities crossing. You could say it's at death, or you could say it's at Tiferet, and that's both true. I think those two things. It's just it's maybe you could say difference by degrees. So maybe that's a good way to describe it. But no, I totally agree with you, Matt, and I also think there is. Okay, so this is something Solar said. So shout out Solar. Obviously, he's usually a co-host on these spaces, and I'm gonna let Monty also introduce him in a moment, or introduce himself, excuse me, and then I'll let Joshua go. But he said like the true potentiality of a curse is when you believe. If someone says to you, "I've cursed you," or "I'm going to curse you," that's actually more powerful. So you say, "I'm going to curse you," but then you believe it, that you are then cursed, then they've put a curse on you. But it's also coming from your own mind, right? It's very yesodic in a way. It's very like the reflection of your own fear, your own bullshit. Whereas my thinking is if someone was like really, if I really wanted to like whatever, I would just do it and say nothing. See, that's how I think. Because, right, power shared is power lost. So you don't always tell people those things. But there's also a potentiality in telling them. So it just depends on which way you want to go about it. How good of an actor, to bring up something that both Chris and Joshua said. It's about acting, right? It's about taking on the role, a character. So if you want to be like, if you feel confident that you can just say it, it doesn't have to be about cursing. It can just be about anything. It's about a bluff. Can you make someone believe it? Okay. If you think you can, the problem is like Matt said, like you make that little misstep, you lie a little too much here, you coat the truth here. Like those are all things that will have to come into rectification. That's why Yesod is about rectification, not synthesis per se, even though there is synthesis between Hod and Netzach. It's about the rectification of the fire and the water, right? Silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times, Psalm 12. Basic Kabbalistic idea just in that alone. Very, like, fundamental understanding of the world. Silver is the planetary metal of the moon. Furnace of earth, that's Malkuth. Where is Malkuth? It's on Yesod. That's what it's talking about. Like, when you read the Bible, that's how you have to look at it. It's talking about Kabbalah, every single thing, every single phrase. And then obviously, once you add Greek, once you add Hebrew, once you add Twilight language, you're talking like about a whole different text. You're talking about something that is like, it's like our phones almost. It's like a live wire, and like trying to tap into that. And that's really what especially the Psalms, although it's not just limited to the Psalms. The Psalms are just explicitly magical. Like, that's it. Like, any psalm. And so don't just read them out loud. Like, understand exactly what they're for. If you want to use them, that's great. In fact, when I talk about the oil manufacturing, after I'm going to let obviously Monty and Joshua go, but after they go, I'm going to discuss like the oil manufacturing, like why there are certain psalms that actually are invocations or orations to the archangels. So I will give you 4 examples. Okay, Monty and then Joshua.
Wow. Just wanted to say real quick off the top that I'm really enjoying these spaces. Every Friday, I really look forward to them, and I just learned so much from you guys. So one thing that I wanted to mention when you brought up earlier the whole villain thing, it's I think a lot of what gets lost in these conversations and also practices of spirituality, religiosity, what have you. I think that it is probably the most important part of being disciplined in anything is not making yourself host to parasites, because going this like monastic and very like pacifistic way of going with the energy of the world and like surfing on the wave is this passive lifestyle will allow topas, klipas, and just some of the worst vampires out there to attach themselves as you as the host body. And so I loved what Matt was saying earlier about how there are certain cultures that will go and say your name backwards as to figuratively and quite literally like tear you asunder and like bury you back where you came from. And so if someone's going to do that to you, one of the most important parts of discipline is to protect yourself. I mean, spirituality is about having dignity and integrity in one's body, self, and soul. And probably, and so in terms of the curse conversation, I think that the heretics see angels as demons. And so trying to figure out what side of the dynamic that you're on, uh, so long as you have confidence and you have like you are disciplined and you are following the teachings and putting the work in, for lack of a better word, that's I mean that's like a nuclear reactor level of like spiritual production, and it's so important to ward yourself off from and it's more so using curses as like a defensive shell around you. And if you do encroach and like make that field too big or throw it on other people, it just crumbles. And so I don't know. Obviously I'm not as clued in as some of the panel here, but I don't know. I just like it's important to be a villain to people who actually are villains. It's important to put curses on people who are actively putting them on you. It's defense. It's dignity and integrity. But I yield my time.
Thank you so much, Monty, and you're not behind at all, because everybody, we're all the same. Yes, I may have like a little I may be a little bit able to discuss things conceptually, but as you know, Monty, I'm just like that. So it comes naturally to me. So we're all the same. I'm not I'm not the cult leader or anything. We're just all learning together. But I'm just it is what it is. When I go off on my like Sephirotic journey, I take you all with me, I guess. Um, Obviously Matt's a little higher than me up, and then in terms of his awareness of the intricacies, I'm just more of like I float. I have a little maybe just like the density of that crazy Dryon wisdom. Maybe that's what we'll say. But I did want to respond to something you said, is that's exactly what I'm talking about, Monty. Like, you totally got it, you nailed it. It is about using the practices of the left hand, not leftist, left hand, in active defense. So that is the dialectical relationship between Hesed and Gevurah, really in its fundamental quality. Mercy and discernment together. And to bring up something Chris said, like he brought up the Zuko example. Well, I also brought this up on our episode, Chris. I apologize to you. But it's the idea of the lightning, how the lightning can also be part of fire. That can be an extension and expansion. Like what's Zuko's sister? She wields that lightning, right? And so does the father. And then her flames are also blue. You could say that is the cold flame of Hesed. It's a really interesting idea. Hesed has actively destructive powers, yes, to do exactly what Monty's talking about. So obviously, if you look at the greater keys of Solomon, obviously, there are defensive pentacles in every single planet. Every single planet has at least a defensive in a degree. Okay? Whether it's from ghosts or hidden enemies or explicit enemies, and it also has imprecatory pentacles. Now, this is the light side. This is like the whatever, if you want to call it that. It's like these are the greater keys. These are angelic and planetary intelligences. This is like the higher formation a little bit, at least the angelic ones, right? And they also have names of God, the Tetragrammaton, but each individual seal also has a name. So why I'm bringing this up is because when you look at the most diverse of all the pentacles really is Jupiter. Well, one of them, you could say. Saturn's also actually relatively diverse, and so is the sun, which we're going to talk about in a moment. I know, Matt, I'll wrap it up, don't worry. But so that's really what it is, Monty. It's both of those things. You bring the fire and the lightning into synthesis. What can you make of those two things? Well, you can make whatever you want, but you have to have the vessel, the klipa, you could say, or even the name to contain it. So if someone is actively fucking with you, yes, you have to turn that polarity around. There are many ways to do it. It's not just metaphysical in the sense that, yeah, you could speak their name backwards. Sure, totally fine. I made a joke about writing someone's name on hell money. Don't do that. Don't do that. But that is a real thing. I'm just saying. So, the reality is you do have to understand how these things work, how they can be done to you, but you can't be paranoid about them either. And you also have to, as Monty says, you have to cultivate active defense. Sometimes if you're better at, so for me, I'm very comfortable at Hesed. That's something I'm more comfortable there than maybe the other ones. That makes sense, right? Like Green Tara, I'm a Buddhist. Yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. However, there are qualities of defense and offense. That's what I'm really trying to say. There are qualities of all the planets have multiplicities. They're not singular. There's also a hierarchy. There are planetary intelligences. There are planetary angels. All angels go in a hierarchy. All demons, in fact, go in a hierarchy. All hosts, in fact, go in a hierarchy. If you do not know if you cannot differentiate, do not play with those things, because you will never call on the right thing. And that's not a warning in any capacity. That's experiential. I'm telling you, this is very fundamental. You could call it tantric or just like esoteric idea. If you do not know the name of something, you do not play with it. Okay, so yes, Matt, please go ahead. I don't know if it's Matt or Joshua. I don't know. Either you guys figure it out.
If you want to speak, Joshua, then I go next.
I think my comment will be a better transition into the meat. So, but I have comments for both older and newer. Go ahead. I defer.
Okay. So very nice what Monty said. I wrote out some stuff here to try to synthesize. So if we come back to the idea of curses, right? You are, again, like Jin also beautifully said, it's all technology. It's all at the end technology of your body, the technology of your soul. It's all technology. So if you understand it in terms of electromagnetism. When you're pushing something outside, right? You're trying to curse something, or you're quote unquote getting a curse. It's always in terms of electromagnetism. So you have the most power over your own generator. So like Jin said, if you believe the curse is real, you actually reinforce it. You reinforce the signal. So, well, if you want to stop the signal, you have to first create the barriers. You have to create these Faraday cages, right, to block the signal, or you have to counter the signal with a different one. So if you start getting bombarded by TikTok and a bunch of crazy sigils and whatever from the videos, you gotta, create sigils back to those so that they don't affect you. And that's why you need to know a lot of symbology. That's why you need to be aware and not like half sleeping zombie. And another interesting thing as well is if you try to be a little like smart ass all the time and try to, just curse people and like just fuck with people all the time, remember, electromagnetism. What goes comes. Not because there's some, bearded guy in the skies that is gonna pluck you if you do bad things, like some parent or whatever, but it's because it's electromagnetism. It's just like that. It goes and comes. And what Monty was saying about you have this idea of people trying to be maybe non-confrontational, or which also sometimes is kind of related to being low self-esteem. So you have someone letting other people shit on them all the time, or like just seeing themselves as passive, right? The universe, again, because it's a technology, it's going to try and bring homeostasis to it. So if you are someone which is constantly thinking about not creating conflict, or not like you have low self-esteem, you're going to reinforce that. So you're going to bring people into your life that actually prove that. Your brain, your consciousness is going to look for activities that prove that that's real. And for you to start to break that loop, there are two arcanas that you can work with, both in both columns. So you have one in the left column, which is going to be the, I'll call you column, the column that you work, you and yourself, you are the focus, right? So for that, you have the justice card, which is the system I use is Binatu Gebura. So in that system, you understand that you gotta be just with yourself first, so that you can be just with others. Again, you cannot expect others to be just with you if not even you are just with yourself. You gotta first look inward, right? If you want to work with the left column. Then the right one, you can use another one, which is the lovers. So the lovers is going to be Chokhmah to Chesed. So you see how they are kind of parallel. And the lovers card talks about you breaking the duality in your mind of, am I the villain? Am I the victim? Am I suffering, or am I causing suffering to others? You break that and you come into synthesis to go to the middle path. So again, you break out of the duality and you choose a third route. And if you can use those two very beautifully, because left column being yourself, the right column being the others, how you interact with others, and so on, then again, those two, you yet synthesize them again and come back to the middle path, once again, to the middle column. So those are some things I noted down here while you guys are speaking about.
No, that was really great, Matt. Okay, Joshua, I'm gonna let you transition us. No pun, no hermetic pun there. Transition us with your whatever brilliance you have.
Well, so basically, you guys were talking about Yesod and Foundation earlier, so I wanted to first start on that and overdoing it. You mentioned something about going too far, and it reminded me of King David, who did was permitted to build the foundation of the temple, but was not permitted to build the temple itself. And it's because he had spilled so much blood in service to God, even, but because he had engaged in so much wrath, right? He still had a lot of blood on his hands. And so if there's a requirement for the priests to not have spilled blood of, man or whatever. So it kind of disqualified him, even though he was a zealous, devotee of the Most High and culling the masses and all that. So that would be like an example of overdoing it. And the scripture, sometimes it's referred to as making the way straight for the Lord. There's no resistance. It's a straight road or whatever, thoroughfare. And the way is made straight. So in other words, anytime there's like a mass culling or whatever, and then they start building the temple, it'd be that sort of theme, right? That would be like Yesodic consciousness to the max. And that's a good example of when the left hand is then exerted in this form as God's sword, rather, over the land on others, projected on others, rather than on the self, right? And so we see David even had flaws of his own, right? So I think it's interesting to examine these characters and kind of map their personality out on the Sephiroth, but also the Klippa, because as we're reading these stories, we can kind of learn from them and be like, oh, they fell into the skanda, or to use your guys' words, or what have you. And this is how it was rectified or whatever. But I just find that about the foundation and his relationship very interesting, because even though he was devoted to deity, he was still not allowed to build the temple. So there's something about the foundation and blood too, because sometimes that's where all the sacrifice blood was going to be, of course, so it didn't stay pristine. But anyway, I wanted to move on to a different topic because so in terms of like curses and that sort of thing, you guys mentioned abracadabra. I think the other of that is a Veridica. It doesn't matter if I get it right. It's better if I don't. But so there was like a different version of that, right? And they had like a Tetris triangle of letters, right? And so they would map it out, and it would either have an addition or subtraction as it would go. So when things are repeated, for instance, well, that's how that was done. Like every time it would repeat, but a letter would be taken away, diminished, or if it's adding to, it would be added, right? So I just thought that was interesting because I've seen those depicted in that way. They're like talismans and such. But the other thing, you mentioned oil. So I thought this might be a good way to kind of transition. So the wineskins, a lot of times we're likened into those wineskins ourselves. Like we contain blood, just like a wineskin contains wine. And so, when we're born again or whatever takes place, when we stamp out the klipas, and it's like a new vessel full of new wine or something like that. So it'd be like a refilling or a reconstruction of the vessel. I think it's kind of analogous to that. But there's a story, we just went through Purim not long ago around February time, and there's a popular story related to the Maccabees and the Jewish tradition. And so they had a Greek revolt that was the Jews were revolting against the Greeks at the time. And so they came in to stamp out the rebellion, destroyed the temple and these sorts of things, stole all the golden things out of the temple, so on and so forth. Well, they had to recast the menorah out of iron, and they didn't have any oil except one flask, one vessel that they found. And see, I never thought about the significance of it till now. That is a vessel. What does that represent? Is that a Sephirah that they found in the rubble? Does it represent like hope? I don't know. But anyway, the story goes that they used the oil from that single vessel for like 8 days, which it shouldn't have lasted that long, but somehow it did. And I just thought that was interesting because you get that oil from olives, by the way. And they only had the one. That was like one of the only things that didn't get stolen. So it was like hidden even, but, or seen as not valuable, to somebody else, but to them, that was the necessary component for them to have communion, in a sense. And to go with the theme of curses in general, I just think warding or wards in general are kind of a theme throughout the Bible, because like the blood of the lamb warded off the angel of death. We don't know what class or rank of angel that was, but it had, the lamb is seen as like the weakest animal, and so God picks it because it requires protection, right? It can't protect itself, and so the lamb's blood also can be used to make anti-venom, that, to like serpent venom and stuff like that. So it's really strange that it would have that property to it as well. So as we move into this new topic of like alchemy or using ingredients or whatever, I just think sometimes there's really interesting lessons hidden in those stories that we might kind of gloss over, right? But then with new eyes, we go back to them, we're like, oh, that might have been something like encoded. Anyway, I don't know, it's kind of schizo everywhere. That I had a lot of thoughts I was just trying to share real quick.
No, that's great, Joshua. I mean, that's what the spaces are, right? They're Gonzo spaces, and I want to say thank you to Monty for saying that he appreciated them, because, I only would ever do it because people want them. So I don't need to be on mic. I have a show. I can go on Rejects if I'm asked, and I get asked on other shows as well. So I don't need to be it, but I appreciate that people like it and think we're doing something interesting. I think it's really fucking interesting, personally. Speculative Gnostic space, not hidden behind Patreon. We talk about I talk about it as much as, I mean, maybe not everything I know, obviously, but we talk about a lot when we go a little more intermediate, and I think that's, I don't know. I'm glad that people like it. It's been really edifying that people do. Okay. So thank you, Joshua, for that transition. I think it was an excellent one, and we'll talk about the idea of blood as well. So if you want to take notes, this is the moment. If you have a pen and paper, you don't have to. You can be like, Jin doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't care. That's fine. We can just take it as conceptual. So I am going to give like a practical, I guess, magic thing, but this is also like very Kabbalistic in a way. And I'll explain why I think so. Okay? So if you look in the chat, our buddy John at Space Answered did me a big favor and found a favorable sun in exaltation talisman election for the sun. Okay, so obviously this would be done on a Sunday, April 18th, I think is the date that he selected. And there's obviously an hour. It's obviously hypothetical. It's for New York. I don't even live in New York, so he just did it as a general map. Doesn't even mean you have to do it on the 18th. In fact, something him and I discussed was this idea of when to make even spiritual oils. This is an interesting idea, because there's an idea that you must be completely astrological, must be completely electional. No. That the older idea is actually that you do it maybe on the calendrical systems that you follow. So if you're tantric, you're following like the Shastras and the tantric astrology. Or if you're more of a normative Hindu, then you're following like the Puranic Shastras and like the Puranic astrology and maybe a little of the Artarvadas. But it's also a bit Mughalized. It's all a bit syncretic. It's a lot more syncretic than people want to like admit. So maybe you just follow the religion, like the temple holidays, because the temple holidays should be also based on astrological cycles. It's an interesting idea that we talked a lot about in other spaces. This meeting of the moon and the sun, like a lunar calendar and a solar calendar, and how, like, in my kind of speculative framework, Aeon of the Daughter, I like the idea of them being merged. I like the idea of like a solar calendar and a lunar calendar being like both in use. I think that is useful. I think that's much more alchemical. I think that's much more realistic as well. So, what I'm saying, I know that was a little bit of a tangent, as I'm prone. So, all of you are used to my meanderings. But, okay, Joshua, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll be brief as well. So in regards to when to create an oil, I would maybe suggest looking at like the canning and fermentation that the old folks in Appalachia all go by. For instance, you always can when the moon is in the head, which is Aries, or in Leo, which is the solar plexus. If you can in Virgo, which is the guts, or Pisces, which is the feet, it'll go rancid or spoil. So if you're trying to make oils or something at all, and you notice you're failing even though you don't understand why, you might want to look at the phase of the moon. So at least jot that down when you're doing this, so that if you have a failure, you might see a correlation, be like, oh, I shouldn't have done it in the guts. But that might be good for something else, like if you're needing putrefaction, for instance, or something like that. So just something to keep in mind. And I had another comment, but I forgot what it was.
If you do remember, just jump in. That's totally fine. Okay, so I agree, but I agree. Note the lunar calendar. So that's what my whole point was about.
I remember now.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry.
So, and in Judaism, that would be Solomon, soul and moon. So the priest king together in one, in a sense. So I kind of see it that way, because they're over law and priestly matters. So you got the solar calendar for civil, which is kingly stuff, and then you got the moon for priestly stuff, which is the ecclesiastical year. So actually, the ecclesiastical year of Israel starts now. We're in that now, but Israel as a country starts their new year in September, which is the civil calendar. So you kind of got like a solar lunar thing going on there. So anybody that's like a religious observer of Judaism, like myself, we would start our calendar now. But then if you're not religious, you probably start your calendar in September. So you got to call that Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the year. It's actually the tail of the year. But if your tail and head meet there, I guess it could be either or, depending on your perspective.
Well, thank you, Joshua. As we say, it's both. It's never either or. It's always neither nor. And okay, Matt, please go ahead.
Yeah, just very quickly on the topic of like waiting for a specific astrological thing to happen and so on and so on. Like if you think about it, you as a magician, you can always be creative, right? So let's say you want to make a abundance thing, but the moon right now, maybe it's not the best necessarily to abundance. You can always play things around. So if it's not, let's say, uh, you can use if the energy, let's say, is for destruction or for resting, but you want to have something to make you better, to make you gain more stuff. You can use the energy of resting or destruction to destroy that which is impeding you of growing, right? You can always play around with this like antithesis of things as well. So you don't need to wait for this perfect, moment to create stuff and so on and so on and so on. And if we understand also that everything always comes back to the mind, it's not literal. It's not because necessarily the moon is in a specific position, even because depending on the calendar you use, it's not going to be there, right? It's like if you actually looked at the moon physically, it wouldn't be on the sign which they say it is sometimes. So again, it's not something to be taken literal most of the times. It's all in the mind. So if you can control that on the subtle realms, then again, you don't need to wait for the specific time necessarily. Or even like Jin also suggested, you can use different calendars. So for example, you could look into, if you're more into the equatorial places, you can use the Mayan one, like the Tzolk'in, which is very interesting as well. It's very easy also to understand, at least like it's less things to take into account. And yeah, again, you can use that, and you can maybe see, okay, maybe now it's a day based on the token that makes sense for the thing that I want to do. Okay, then I'll use it as my mental reference to make the thing that I want to do. If it gives you more confidence, right? Just got to be creative with it.
Okay, so thank you, Matt. That was great. Obviously, I was going to talk about this a little bit, but you know what? It took some burden off me, so thank you for doing that. I also nested in the chat No, I'm just Matt knows I'm just totally kidding. I'm actually really nice, I think, most of the time. So I nested in the chat the seventh pentacle of the sun. So in my vision of the working, this is the pentacle that you would use. So if you don't know how to consecrate it, that's totally fine. This is just we're just conceptualizing, maybe visualizing a conceptual working. This is a very important pentacle. It's underutilized just in ceremonial magic in general. Not that I was ever a ceremonial magician, because I never was. But I did use the seals of the Pentacles of Solomon. I've consecrated all of them probably 3 or 4 times at least each, because I didn't obviously always use them for each one, because some of them are like for things I would never do. And then, but some of them I know very well. So the seventh pentacle of the sun is actually really interesting because it breaks chains, breaks obstacles, breaks walls. So you could say it has a explosive solar power in a way. It's a very potent energy. It's neither nor. As you know, we've been talking a lot about like drawing the fire and the lightning, or the water and the fire, what that is and what that means and how to do it. Well, this is like that, the kind of more explosive part of synthesis, you could say. It's like you're bringing in a little more potentiality with this one. That's why I like this pentacle. I think it's a very powerful thing. In fact, one of the visualizations that I read it probably in some book a million years ago. I don't even remember which. They were talking about what to visualize when you're consecrating this particular pentacle. And I think it might have been Jason Miller, could have been, but I don't remember. But it's like a pair of shackles, and you're breaking them. Like that's the visualization as you're doing the oration. So if you don't know how to consecrate a pentacle, again, it's just conceptual. I'm not saying you have to do it. There's an oration, and then you read a series of psalms in order while burning usually a planetary incense, but it would only be composed of like a resin. So for the sun, you'd burn like frankincense as a simple. Maybe you'd add myrrh and, I don't know, angelica. Okay, so if you're working with the angels, that would be a great little 3 herb blend. But you don't even have to do that, because I'm going to teach you how to make a really good quality Abramelin oil. And even if you don't want to make it, it just can be a conceptual idea that you think through as I go through the Kabbalah of the oil, right? Because it doesn't have to be magic. It can just be conceptual, and that can be the magic of it, like in and of itself, something that you can conceptualize, visualize, and create. If you're able to do so, if you're able to visualize it, that can be something. But you can also do it. And so the other reason, and I'm going to let Joshua go, but the other reason why I chose the Abramelin oil is because in Jewish tradition, it's called Exodus oil. And so this is the oil of the temple. This is the oil that would be applied to everything. My version is not the same as the Bible. My version is not the same as Crowley, but it's my own thing. But I reasoned why I added things. And I can reason why I think it's a solar oil. And I can also reason why, through Kabbalah, obviously. And I can also reason why I think it can be a useful oil for any work. It has every purpose, because it will always overcome the obstacles before you. Okay, yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to comment about the Exodus oil, so thank you for mentioning that. But you reminded me, I had actually forgotten that I even had it. I have a vial of some Abramelin oil here, and I noticed it happens to be Crowley's recipe. So I looked and noticed that the difference that he includes happens to be galangalau, which I'm not even really sure what that is. I guess it's a root. But what I did notice is that all of them have cinnamon, and most of them have myrrh also. So I was just curious about the things they had in common and things that were different. But some of the variations are interesting too, like cassia and calamus, etc. But thank you. I just wanted to comment on the Exodus oil thing.
Absolutely. So this is something I'm going to discuss, Joshua. So thank you for bringing it up. It is definitely, if you look at the Exodus oil in the Bible and you look at the Exodus oil of various magicians, not just Crowley, Agrippa has his own. His is more in keeping with the Exodus oil. In fact, I think even in one of the books he says, he just calls it like oil of the temple, and then he says like the actual biblical citation, and then he expects you to like make it from that, which is fine. But so the galangal, which is Ramonno or galangal, is very closely related to ginger and turmeric. Those are all in the same, very closely related family. And also cardamom. Green and black cardamom are also in the ginger family. Okay? That doesn't mean they're all interchangeable. Galangal is not, in fact, interchangeable really with ginger, but you can get away with it. So I will say, if you cannot get galangal, which is very easy to access if you live in any large city with an Asian market, you should be able to find at least dried, which is what you want. Dried galangal comes in big root chunks. That's it. That's all you need. If you live by a botanica, you can just get it there. But that, yeah, so galangal is a really interesting thing, and I was actually prepared this whole thing. I was going to discuss about how Crowley loved it, and he kind of occulted the meaning of it, and he did. But he's not the innovator of galangal in Western medicine or Western sort of popular consciousness. In fact, we have to look to a Catholic saint of the 17th century, Saint Hildegard of Bingen. She was the first sort of Western writer, other than Galen, to discuss the properties of galangal. So they must have been on the Silk Road like export, because it's a very pungent herb. You can actually substitute really certain kinds of galangal for camphor. So you can burn it. It has a very camphor-aceous smell. Like if you've ever smelled like a camphor cube, there are kinds of galangal that have almost the same potency. Pungency. It's like a mixture of lemongrass, another cleansing herb, with camphor, the most cleansing herb, right? Because even in white sage, what is the property that cleanses? It's really the camphor aceousness. It's that top note that's almost wintergreen, but kind of pushes past it. That's the real cleansing agent. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but there's a Mr. T. Oh, great, we got a Dharma bro in here as well. Great, okay. And Shakti came. Thank you. Lucifer, Enochian, Vanessa jumped back in. Okay, cool. I just want to shout everyone out. Shakti, of course, longtime lodge member, Dakini as well, and so great to see you. Oh, and I wanted to say this the whole time. Sir Tim and Mookie, there we have Patrick Moise. Patrick, our dude. I don't know. Patrick's great. Everybody follow Patrick if you don't follow Patrick. Now I've totally forgot what I was saying. Oh, so Sir Tim is actually in the great state of Hawaii. So aloha, Sir Tim. So his time zone is different, and Mookie's in Europe. So her time zone is also different. So it's not just Rom. So you're all special snowflakes to me. So, okay. So Exodus oil. So galangal. Yes, Crowley was fond of it. He definitely took it from St. Hildegard of Bingen. Correspondences. Well, this is interesting because they actually have slightly different attributions. So St. Hildegard of Bingen said that galangal was actually an herb of the heart and of obviously corresponding to the sun, like the solar, like Tiferet. That's really what Hildegard was talking about, because she always talked about Kabbalah. But really, that's what it is talking about. Okay, but Crowley assigned it to Mars, and it has a more martial fire. You could say both of those things are correct. There's obviously a component of Gevra at Tiferet that's indisputable. So you could say that he's drawing on like the fire of the sun or the martial quality of the sun, and so that's what we're also drawing on. So in my oil, I also have included galangal. But that is not the prime ingredient. I just brought it up because Joshua brought it up. But also the idea of cassia. Cassia is just a false cinnamon, and I'm calling it false cinnamon. It's not actually false cinnamon. It's actually closely related. cinnamon, cassia, and bay laurel. So if you're familiar with bay leaves used in cooking and obviously very popular in magic, those are actually all interrelated plants, very closely related. And camphor is also related to them as well, interestingly. So cassia is really just it has a lower oil quality. Like the oil is not as potent. The flavor is not as potent, and it does not contain as many coumarins. Coumarins are what give things a vanilla taste. That's why Mexican, quote unquote, Mexican cinnamon tastes a lot better than the Vietnamese or the Saigon cinnamon, because that Mexican cinnamon is actually true cinnamon, whereas Saigon cinnamon is actually cassia. So cassia is really just a filler. And you'll see this a lot in Asian incense making, as someone who spent a lot of time incense making, is that you really find that they use cassia really just as a filler ingredient. It's technically a botanical. It has obviously astrological correspondences. It's solar, just like cinnamon, and I'll get into that in a minute. But it's really just a filler. It does not have a potency of smell. So I just think skip it altogether. Like, why? You have cinnamon in it. You're adding galangal. Okay, so that's plenty. That's not even all of what I have. But okay, so cinnamon. So this is a solar herb for sure. Yes, some people say it's martial because it's sensitizing in its essential oil quality, meaning that when you put obviously cinnamon essential oil, don't do this, on your skin directly without dilution, it can cause reddening. Now, when we did Gavura, we talked a lot about how herbs of Mars have an urticaceous or urtifying quality. That just means that it causes irritation and redness, but it's temporary, like nettle. Nettle is a perfect herb of Mars because it's an urticaria. That's even the Latin name of it. So if you rub raw nettles on your skin, they'll blister a little bit, but it goes away like within a few minutes after if you wash it off. But you can also eat nettles, so it's it's very nutritious, very high in iron, to bring up something that Joshua brought up about the iron menorah. So yeah, totally something really interesting about that. And then okay, so I said cinnamon, solar, yes, but also martial, yes. So it has both of those qualities. Calamus. Calamus is a really interesting herb. I like it so much. So if you look at it in TCM, Chinese medicine terms, it's really a neurological, and it can also be hepatic, meaning like used for liver things. But there's some contraindications about its use for liver. So I'm not giving any medical advice. We're looking at it through medical astrology, right? Like I'm talking about the Sephirotic qualities, but we know that the organs all correspond to planetary things, doctrine of signatures. You must have this is just a foundational idea, doctrine of signatures. So everything has its correspondences in relationship to both the microcosm and the macrocosm at the same time. I know that was probably a lot, but it's a really fundamental idea that you have to understand if you're doing any kind of herbal, or I'm not talking about herbal internal, I'm talking about herbal alchemical. Okay, so a little different. But you have to understand kind of where things function in the body, because then you can get an idea of what planets they're related to, what like properties they have. Are they energetic? Are they purifying? It all correlates. Spiritual and medical uses. It's all interrelated. Okay, so neurological. That's really interesting. So the mind and hepatic. So the liver. So the mind is ruled by what? So we've talked a lot about Yasodic consciousness. But there's also a solar element, a Tipheratic element. So there you go. So it contains both of those properties. It's also warm. Warm things are generally of the nature of the sun or of Mars. That's not a forever rule, but it's a good idea that you can just use as a basic framework to kind of understand what we're talking about, because this is really about the grammar of oil. It's not really about what is in it. It's how to reason through why you're doing what you're doing. That's really what all of this is. It's just a conceptual exercise, even. But obviously, if you want to make the oil, do it. I'm just offering this as an idea. Okay. So Calamus also has this really cool spiritual power to control things. people, even situations. Put yourself on top. It's a very common use of calamus. So calamus obviously is a must. It's not included in, oh, it is in the oil temple. I'm sorry, I was going to say it wasn't. But okay, so next ingredient, cedar. I'm talking about tuja. So you will not have really easy access to what I'm talking about, which is really the red cedars of Lebanon, obviously cited in Psalm 104, as well as numerous other times in the Bible. But you can use our, the West Coast cedar that you can buy at the Botanica. That's totally fine, right? No problem. That it's not the same, but we know it as cedar. So for our purposes, and not all of us are American, quote unquote, but we can say we're like modern Western magicians. So we're going to use the things that are available. So perfectly fine. Use Tuja, no problem. If you want to use Atlas cedar or Lebanon cedar, you can get it sometimes. I'm sure the European listeners will have more access to that, but you can also get it in essential oil. Now, I'm not saying add essential oils. Not an essential oil person. I think that you lose potency a little bit. I think the oil's nice for smell and like for presentation. This is a non-commercial thing. So for our purposes, no, I don't add oil. So I'll just use Tuja. So we're going to do some of that. Then what we will need, and maybe I should have opened with this, but because Joshua gave me such a good opening to discuss Galangal, okay, so liturgical grade olive oil. Now, what do I mean by liturgical grade? So you can actually buy Orthodox quality, like from an Orthodox church supply. You can actually get this very easily. It's liturgical grade olive oil. You can also just simply buy Portuguese olive oil, which is generally, we're all avoiding seed oils, let's be honest. So we have to, you're going to pay a little more, and but it's a much better quality. Okay. So, but you have to use a good quality, because the oil is like the base. It's like the carrier. It's just like, it's the garden. It's really, because like, think of the greenness, right, of olive oil. You're sort of, that's not the container, but it's the fluid or the essence through which all things sort of come together. The materiality. There's at least a material element to that. So you could say that is olive oil. So I would say get the best you can get. If it's liturgical, that's great. If it's like a Portuguese kind, that's great. The other kinds, I guess, there are some good Greek brands, but at your own peril. But really, what you want is olive oil, and it's important for this recipe. Okay, next, Highjon. So you're going to be like, why are you adding Highjon to Abramelin oil? Makes total sense. It's power over things, power over people, power over situations, and personal power. The most important thing, personal power. Meaning, how do you confront obstacles? How do you confront things of yourself? So Highjon is a very American sort of like folk magic thing, but I think it fits perfectly. And I think if you understand sort of like the saint attributions and like Saint John the Baptist is generally the sort of association with Brer Rabbit, with Highjon, and you can also say Moses, of course, Moses, because he's like the primordial magician in a way, and so. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think Highjon, I like it. There's no point to live here if we're not going to like use what is already here. Like there's so much tools. We don't have to be bound. Like Mandrake. Okay, American Mandrake is not even the same family. It's totally a different plant. Like 100% different. But they're used for similar things in pioneer medicine. So they must have recognized in and of themselves a kind of doctrine of signatures to which to utilize them. So I'm just saying that we don't have to be totally bound by what is the botanical container of the Bible, but we can also use like what is of the land here. I think that's also an interesting idea because it's very synthetic, right? Okay, so there you go. Hi, John. So frankincense. Yes, frankincense. Although you could use 2 American substitutions. So one would be elephant tree, I think is what it's called, and it's from the Southwest. So it's a Bursera. So frankincense is a Bursera. But also, interestingly, Palo Santo is also a Bursera. So it's also, I know Nick loves Palo Santo, so that's why I brought it up. But anyways, he's going to do an episode with JJ, which, and I will like jump in the chat there after we're finished. But we're gonna finish. So okay, so frankincense, yes, Ethiopian I think is the best quality. That's my personal opinion. That's what I would use myself. I think you could use copal. I think that you could use a really good high grade Mexican copal, no problem. It's very close. It's not exactly the same scent, but it's very close. It's, they use it as a church incense in Mexico. I think it's completely, perfectly fine. So I like it a lot. So I'm just saying you can use frankincense or you can use copal, but myrrh is a must. Now, this idea of substituting myrrh, can you? Yes, there's actually black copal. So you could do a mixture of gold and black. That's kind of an interesting way to think of it also alchemically. But I also think myrrh it's kind of Saturnian. It has an opiate quality, meaning it is yesodic in a way. So, is that a perfect black copal and myrrh substitution? No, it's not a perfect substitution, but it's an interesting one. And sometimes I think that's kind of what magic should be, is about, like, are things interesting? Like Matt brought up the idea of experimentation. So there, I'm giving you something interesting to think about. So another thing you will need is gold leaf. Now you're going to be like, that's crazy. I'm not buying gold leaf. Well, why do you want gold leaf? Well, gold is the alchemical metal of the sun. It's actually relatively inexpensive. You can go to the art supply store and get little bottles of it. You just put the whole bottle in, no problem. Okay, yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I was just going to comment that perhaps you could even try monoatomic gold. You can get that in powder form and things. Of course, its potency and all that's questionable sometimes, but that could be another possible ingredient to substitute.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I think that there are, like, you should let nothing inhibit you, in the sense of, obviously morality should be a guide stone for how you conduct yourself. But I'm saying, you just because I'm saying some crazy botanical that you don't think you have access to or cannot afford, or whatever the situation is, that should not deter you from what we're talking about, because we're really just talking about it in a conceptual way. That's why I'm also trying to go through the planets of the herbs, so you can think about them and say, oh, okay, this is a solar herb. Jin is saying this is a solar herb. Maybe there's a correspondence here. Maybe I can substitute this thing that I don't have with something that I do have. That's why it's good to know the natures: cold or hot, bitter or sweet, salty or sour. Yes, all of those things mean something. They relate to a planetary intelligence. Yes, Matt, please go ahead.
So I want to give 3 options here as a good Kabbalist to you if you think maybe you don't have these botanicals. So first option, ignore the idea that you don't have them. Assume that you will get them and see for yourself. Maybe somebody presents it to you. Maybe you find it in a random Instagram ad or whatever. It's going to come to you. Second, like Jin said already, you can find other correlations. So you can find similar things that you can substitute and so on. And third one is, say you are in the middle of nowhere, right? Say you are put into the desert and you think you are a great magician just because you know how to do candle magic and incense and whatever. Well, if you're in the middle of the desert, you're not going to have access to all of that. So again, what is the source of the powers? It's the mind. So if you don't have any of the ingredients, or you want to test everything without the ingredients, you can also use your mind. So create them astrally, like create them in the subtle realms and do the mixtures there. And again, with the mind power, you will be able to create the things as well. So like the talismans, whatever it is, right? Even like candle magic, you don't need the candles. Again, the mind is the one creating the thing. So try this as well if you want to, advance a little bit, be more let's say, adapt or whatever, that should be that would be very interesting as well. But obviously, with the ingredients, it's nice, right? You have all this ritualistic. This is very the Hierophant, the Five Arcana. You have all the ritual there, the thing happening, and maybe you're in a costume. Maybe you put yourself into this altered state because of the thing, because of the smell, and so on. But remember, it's all play. The mind is the one actually projecting the things.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I think anyone who's listened to the spaces before or me on any show knows that I like the conceptual layer or the post-conceptual or even the pre-conceptual layer. I'm more comfortable there in the mind. So I 100% agree with what Matt is saying. I'm just bringing in some practical alchemical magic because I think it's useful for people who have never done it to make it one time, at least once. You make a spiritual oil for yourself one time, then you know its qualities. You know it. I'm not saying to taste it, but in general, you can assess through the ingredients, through the process of alchemy, you can assess the quality of it. So then it's much easier to create it and formulate it in your mind. 100%. So you have to have that Malkuth process. I want to say Malkuthian, but it's also Yesodic because you're very aware of what you're doing, but it's also cultivating because you're maybe not aware of your destination right when you're doing it, but you're working towards it. You're farming. That's another way you could think of it, cultivating. Yes, Matt, please go ahead.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think you nailed it. It's like you can do it first in a, let's say, physical way, in a logical way, with the candles, with the incense, or even when you're talking about gestures, right? Oh, I want to do we were talking about the book on the lesser banishing ritual or whatever. Sure, do all of those, get good at them to the point that you can do them without the physical components. Like that's the point where you should get to, because at some point, at some day, either you're not going to have those because you're in, let's say, an environment that you don't have, or because the body is going to be here and your soul is not going to be here anymore. And you would be very happy if you could still use those same things that you learned while here outside of the body. So get good at doing them with the body. I'm not like Gnostic in the way that, oh, fuck the body, fuck the physical. That's not the point. It's just remember that you can use both, right? And the digital one, you can use it anywhere, so it's kind of good to know how to use it anyway.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. Okay, yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. And kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the habits, and it's like, that's a factor as well, because if you're doing something all the time, you're forming neural pathways. And of course, the body has its flaws, but that's something you're taking with you everywhere you go, right? So nothing's better than that. And so you can kind of use some of these things as almost like crutches until you can walk, so to speak. But of course, this is not medical advice, all that disclaimer stuff. But I would say even to taste your stuff when you can, because it links to smell and memory and taste. And so if you're trying to form these neural pathways and your goal is to not need them, I think tasting them's kind of maybe necessary, but not eating them. I think that's the big distinction, because you can even taste like poison mushrooms, for instance, and spit them out, and they're not going to harm you, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I don't want anybody to die or get hurt, but I'm just making that point, that because that's one of our five senses. So if we don't use the taste, we're losing 20% of that neural pathway potential there. Anyway, I just wanted to comment on that.
No, you're 100% right. And I was trying to subtly imply that you should, but also without saying it like that you shouldn't. But in a conceptual way, you should. So take that as you will. I've tried all the ingredients that I've given you for this. So if you've been counting, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 ingredients. I know that's not a particularly Tiferatic number, but I think it is interesting just as I mean, 9 is just beloved by, let's just be honest. It's just like all the boys in the group chat, they love 9. Okay. So we'll just say that. So, And anyways, I didn't do it for that, but I just think it's interesting. Obviously, you do include the olive oil and you do include the gold leaf. Is it a botanical? No, it's a mineral. But that's fine. It still gets counted. There are ways you can do oils where you count the minerals separately. That's more if you do additional mineral elements or dirts or whatever you're doing or crystals. I don't really do crystals, and just it was never my thing. I like them. I have them. I think that they're lucky. I collect obsidian, not obsidian, onyx. No, whatever it is. I collect. Patrick knows, he's seen the picture, but whatever it is, I collect it, and I have lots of other ones. But I'm just not a crystal person in my oil, so I didn't add it. You can add garnet. Garnet is the more inexpensive substitution for a ruby. Obviously, if you want to go full Crolian, you could get a star ruby. Like, they totally exist. It's just like, how much do you want to spend? Like, you could spend a lot. It's up to you. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I had forgotten to mention that the only risk with tasting things is if you're not growing them yourself or whatever, if the origin's sometimes questionable. Because I do suspect sometimes at like shops they might be selling bulk herbs that have maybe been treated with pesticides or something like that. So again, use discretion about concerning take, because even what's not toxic could be toxic when you're tasting it if who grew it was using pesticides. And so get to know your whoever's giving it to you, or learn how to find it, so on and so forth. Just wanted to add that.
So I am not like a Wiccan in the sense of, I'm not saying you are, Joshua, in any way. I totally agree with you. But I'm saying that I'm not like one of those Wicca ladies who's like, you must have like all ethically sourced things. Like, I'm more practical and I'm much more chaotic. Like, let's just be real. But I do have a practice now that does require very specific things. So I totally agree with what Joshua is saying. Like, you have to kind of know, you should be aware of quality. Like, I think that that's utmost. I think that's more important than like any. I'm not an anti-fair trade, whatever that even is, product category person. Like, I'm fine with it. I buy it all the time. Like, I don't know. It's probably fucking meaningless. Organic, all of that. I buy it. Like, that's what I buy. Because I'm like granola like that. But I think that's all bullshit at this when you're talking about the alchemical level. I think quality over label. 100%. So one thing I did used to do when I was making doing a lot more experimental alchemy was actually I made friends with people who owned a Chinese apothecary. Now you might think, well, those aren't that great quality. They're sprayed. I can assure you that like these were the kind of people that knew exactly who the things were coming from, could tell you if they were sprayed and unsprayed because you had the choice. They would always give you the option. So I was comfortable there. What That's really the point, is that I was comfortable to buy ingredients there that I knew were of really great quality and then they could tell me the origin of. It doesn't have to be a Chinese pharmacy. So it could be, I'm not a big, as I think this is something that even Matt was thinking of when Joshua was speaking, and Joshua mentioned like going to buy bulk herbs. A lot of like botanicas have shit quality things. Doesn't mean everything. You can get like a really nice high john. You can get like, there's things. Totally, there are things. There's just like, you have to know what you're getting, and you have to like know what the good quality is. And I think like if you're gonna make something, if you're gonna make one oil, this is the oil to make, right? Seventh pentacle, 9 ingredients. 9 plus 7 is what? 16. It's the 6 and the 1. It's interesting. Could say I did it on purpose, because I did. But I just think it's interesting that like you can form these, I don't know, interrelationships with like the things you're using and how they will be used and then how they will manifest. I think that matters. And it's like resonance, like I don't talk about any of that like stuff that Matt talks about, like resonance and like energetic vibes. Like I don't know any of that, okay? And like this is like big for me to not speak in a strictly dharmic layer, which is more my comfort zone. Obviously, to speak in more the magical, broader magical way is like is kind of new for me. So I don't know. I think that it matters, and I think all of those things have a resonance, and quality is the utmost. So that's my advice. Okay, Joshua, please go.
Yeah, and I just had another interesting thought, because it's like common among people in the community to be like, well, make your own sigils, right? You don't ever want to import other people's things or whatever. So I kind of even think that for myself, it's like, yeah, that is like the highest tier of, something is like producing it yourself, that self-reliance or whatever. And I think that, it reminds me of some of the stories in the Bible where they're getting the offerings and things that they're taking to the temple. They always got the best. They wanted to get like the best lamb or ox, and of course, depending on your income level, you could get different things. And I thought this might make for a nice transition. I don't know where you wanted to insert the dove, but doves were sometimes the sacrificial animal in the temple. So there were some that were like lambs, doves, oxen, so on and so forth. And in some cases, even plant matter like barley or your vegetable crops. But whatever it was always the best of it. So if your aim here is to truly commune with spirits or God or anything like that, I think that quality, like you said, quality has to be the first consideration. Because otherwise it could be offensive, maybe, I don't know, because it's like, think of like you're giving a gift to somebody, and to save a little money, you kind of like George Costanza when he got Elaine the dress with the dot on it, the cashmere sweater or whatever. So she noticed the dot though, so anyway, I just wanted to weave on that a little bit.
Yes, Matthew. I shouldn't call you that, Matt. Please go ahead.
No, that's the English version. Come on. So I want to quickly speak on what Joshua said about like importing, let's say, or using the a program we call like open source stuff. That's for sure always something to keep in mind, because let's say you want to use somebody else's sigil, or you want to go to a shop and buy somebody else's thing, like somebody else's golem or incense. But even in a simpler term, right, we are talking about curses. Say you go to a thrift shop and you buy a jacket you liked. Well, who knows who used that jacket for how much time and how much energy they added into that jacket that now you're gonna wear. It can be very much well cursed, in the sense like it could be someone who was very depressed or very anti what you were trying to bring into your life that now you just bring. Now, obviously, this is more of a problem if you're a very beginner and you cannot sense things, because in a way you should be able to, when you see stuff, sense them. Oh, okay, this is maybe not the nicest thing. Or you wouldn't even be attracted to the things. But anyway, as the topic is curses, right? You just need a little bit of, let's say, time with the thing for it to start resonating with you, if you don't fight it back, or if you don't know how to purify it, how to cleanse it. And maybe another thing here to bring up as an idea, I don't know if we would go into that, Jin. You said maybe not so much voodoo or Santeria, but just something that came into mind is that, and I don't see other people talking about it, but basically, in a way, you can do curses, you can bless people, right? It's the same technology, you're just doing it for different meaning. And you can even in theory use the same knowledge that you have to curse others or to bless yourself, right? You can do blessings to yourself. But here is how you can trick here's how you can trick the game. Say you have someone that you don't like that much, or maybe you're like not in the best terms, an ex or whatever, right? You don't talk to them, or there's something, you don't interact with them. And think about it. Wouldn't it be, and maybe I'm bushing here, but that's something I believe in. Wouldn't it be a very nice way to, let's say, think in terms of credits, a way to balance your credits, if you did the blessings for the people that you don't like? Because it's easy, right, to do blessings to people you like, to yourself, to family, and so on. But say you have someone that you don't like and you give them blessings, wouldn't that be a way to correct or to give you some kind of credits? Always not wanting the credits, that's the paradox. You do things without wanting them. but just putting it out there. You want to maybe test out this new blessing thing you're learning. Try out with someone that you maybe don't like that much, and who knows, maybe something magical starts to happen.
Well, as I always tell you, Matt, you are very Dharma pilled because this is something that you actually have to do. It's actually like a visualization that you do, that you imagine your enemy, like you have to imagine them in perfect loving kindness, and then like totally, you don't carry forth your negative aggregates towards them. Like you let it go. That's the point. Obviously, the human mind is much more complex than that. It doesn't really work like that always. It's not like a one-time, one and done kind of thing. But that is the point. It's not to carry your enemy with you through space and time. Now, you might say, why is this Hesed? But it's both qualities of Hesed. That's what's really interesting about it. So you're like letting go what they've done, but you're also like kind of setting a boundary and casting them off. It's kind of interesting if you think about it. It's very smart. Buddhist magic's very smart. Okay, I think it was Matt has hand raised, or Joshua. I apologize. Joshua, please go ahead.
That's cool. So concerning the you just mentioned like boundaries and stuff. It reminded me of like Saturn and how important the boundaries are, and how often what are used for boundaries. Like normally it's water and things like that, but also salt. So anyway, doorways. So you just kind of triggered a few thoughts in mine. But as far as the cursing thing, I remembered a biblical story. There's a prophet named Balaam, and there's this group of people that want him to curse the Israelites. And he knows, he's like, well, I can't do that, because if I do that, it's like it's going to come back. He knew what would happen. And so anyway, the story goes on, and eventually what happens is God kind of lets him do it, but in an interesting way. It ends up being a blessing. And so what we're kind of talking about there is kind of related, how the supposed curse turns into a blessing because it ends up being like a prophecy about the star of Jacob rising up with a scepter and so on and so forth, which some say has yet to be fulfilled, maybe even. So, but anyway, that aside, I was just thinking too about the how the evil eye and the glare, like if you look at somebody real mean or whatever, that too I think falls under this category of like curses and stuff. And people wear those blue eyes, maybe. I can't remember if there's a term for that, but the hamsha or whatever. I think we might even talked about that before. But I kind of feel like that's because when somebody engages in that kind of behavior, it's real raw, right? And they're not bridled, so it can be kind of something that we do without realizing it. So I think it's important to kind of like almost maybe assume that can happen to anybody, right? Because like road rage and things like that are great examples of that. How you might glare at somebody, and why this really hits hard right now is like I've in the community, I've heard people like make comments like that, and then people die afterwards. And my mom told me a story a long time ago about a friend she had that had made a comment to somebody randomly they were at like a pool. This was in the 70s. That they wanted them to die, and then they died the next day. And my mom called that girl and was like, "Hey, that person died." And that person didn't even seem to care. They were a soulless husk anyway, I suppose. But so I do think we should be careful what we say and the words we choose, because they carry with them like a vibratory effect just on water alone. And we're mostly water, so that can. But if you direct it to yourself, like Matt was talking about earlier, you can be your own worst enemy in that sense by injecting that into your own water, so to speak. And water holds memory. It has memory and holds charge and so on and so forth. So we have to be real cautious. But if we're going to another biblical reference rather would be loving your enemies. And so I think that's a perfect illustration here of what Matt was saying, where you practice, because that's the harder thing to do, right? So it's going to have the most fruit or most yield and less risk, perhaps, but a longer period of time might be required And see, that's what's so interesting. I think makes good for good storytelling and redemption arcs, is because then it's like at some point in the future that thing might happen, right? But it's never usually immediate. But negative things are immediate a lot of times. Anyway, sorry for meandering.
No, thank you, Joshua. So that was great. I totally agree with you. You said a lot of things that I thought were really interesting. And I think we're even going to come back to what we talked about, the 4 and the 5 numerically I'm going to bring it back. So if you look at the pentacle that I posted and nested in the chat, there is a Vajra quality. There's also a swastika quality if you really want to get into it. There's a quality of perpetuation, so the 8, but it's double 8. That's one way you can think of it. I'm not saying that's what it is. It's not really what it is, but you could say it's the 5. You could say it's the 5 direction. And so I think that that's really interesting, because that is how you also consecrate a seal. You take a little bit of the oil and you dap it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 in the center. So that's really interesting, right? Because it's like you're making the crossroads. You're making where the axis mundi. You're actually physically imitating that with the oil. Now, the oil is just viscous, something very hermetic about viscosity, right? Very quicksilver. And so you have this empty oil. Yes, you put herbs in it. Okay, that's great. Maybe you put essential oil, cedar oil. Oh, it smells so great. Okay. It has no magical quality. Not really. Yes, making it gave it something. Yes, knowing what the ingredients are for, their kind of correspondences, their magical meaning. Okay, yeah, that's great. But what really, really matters is something that Joshua said. It's like, what is the word? Now, the word, to reference Matt, can also happen in your mind. It's something that you can visualize and speak in your mind. That's really high level. It is. It's higher level. So we're going to go to what something Joshua said, the word. So what words do you speak to activate it? Well, the visualization also must be happening at this moment. But in a general way, you could say that you have the oil, you have the sigil. So you're going to take a red string. So I did not count this as part of it. You're going to make 3 small loops, kind of knots, whatever is going to fit your glass vial. And you're going to wrap. I know this is not proper. This is not how you consecrate a Solomonic seal in any capacity. Nobody clip this and say that it is. But we're doing it my way. So you're going to wrap it to face. So you want the actual sigil itself to face inwardly, like to face inside of itself, like on the oil. Okay. But first, you're actually going to write a vesicle on the back neatly. So the vesicle is the verse that activates the seal. Very important. And it's important to also note that Stephen Skinner rectified both the seals themselves and the actual vesicles used. So you probably should have a copy, or cough, a PDF of the Skinner translation, because those are much better quality. Okay. Okay, so you're going to write the vesicle, and you can also write your name. It's really interesting. You can also write your name in a crosshatch pattern. Very common. You can also add your birth date. Now, you don't want other people to touch your oil. You don't want to put it in the open. It actually should be in like a small box. That's a great place for it, like a wooden box. Just put it there. That's fine. But after you've activated it, said a prayer, okay, what is the vesicle for the 7th pentacle of the sun? Well, it is Psalm 104. Interesting, because 104, as Joshua said, the 5, very Gevuratic as well. Psalm 104 is also really useful for all the purposes, for every purpose. It's an all-purpose psalm, serves every purpose. But it's particularly useful for activating things with the word. And it also has the other potency, or potentiality, you could say, to break chains. So remember, we talked about this at the very beginning, the 7th pentacle of Solomon, or 7th pentacle of the sun, excuse me. What does that mean? What is its property? It's to break chains. That's even one of the visualizations. So you're kind of doubly pairing its potentiality, you're plus ultraing, kind of, in a way through the viscosity, the quicksilver property of the oil. So you're going to read this Psalm 104 5 times because you don't have an oil through which to consecrate the pentacle. But you're still going to do the work. You're going to tie 3 little red knots around it. And then you're going to do something else. But I'm going to let Matt go first. Please, Matt, go.
Thanks. You talked about like other people not touching it or whatever, not interacting with it. And in the topic of curses, I remembered there's this idea that, let's say, the guy, archaeologists find a new tomb, like a new pharaoh tomb or whatever, right? The guy was with their treasures there, and they find it and they open it, and then out of a sudden, guys die. Like the archaeologists die, or they have these crazy things happening to them that nobody seems to understand what's happening, right? So some people would say that's a curse, right? You open the thing and you got the curse of the mummy or whatever. So think about it in another way. Just like you can do, just like you can create curses in the sense that you can, let's say, interact with something negatively, so you can send energy in a way that it's destructive or whatever. You can also program things to protect your stuff. So if you want to create like that's what the thing in a way happened there, right? You have the guy being buried with the treasures, and you have people creating, you can call them tulpas, golems, elementals, whatever it is, to protect the thing so that nobody comes to get it. Now, what probably happens in those cases is that there was nobody there to deprogram those guys. So there's probably no need to keep there for like thousands of years protecting. But I guess somebody forgot to turn off the robots there. But understand that can be done as well. So not only, so not in the sense of like I'm gonna attack someone with those, but you're gonna protect yourself. It's like those bodyguards, right? And then it doesn't have to be you consciously doing the protection, like it was we were talking about earlier, as sending us a counter signal. Basically, you have someone else, the golem or tulpa or whatever, doing this for you, protecting this, so that you don't get attacked. That's another way of also using curses to your advantage. Say someone wants to curse you, you can have golems that actually eat that energy and do something with that. For example, you can create a golem that eat curse energy and bring you riches or bring you whatever, right? Or if you want to be more naughty, you can even have a mirror. So the golem is just acting as a mirror. Everything that comes goes back. Now it's not on you, you just put a mirror in a way. But yeah, that's since you talked about protecting, that reminded me of this topic.
Yeah, mirrors are a great thing, and I think actually we will probably discuss this on a future space. I think the idea of psychic self-defense and psychic offense is something that probably we will focus on as a group just in the spaces. Obviously, they're always going to be speculative Gnostic spaces, so we're always going to discuss like historical texts and all that. But I think like this idea of psychic self-defense and offense is really interesting, and I think that we actually bring a really interesting kind of non-dual middle pillar approach where we're like, yeah, you can do this one thing with this hand, and you can also do this thing with this hand, and like you try and bring into synthesis, but you have to also have discernment to act in the moment, right? This is a big part of it. Like we talked about, this master of time. If you are the time king, then you have to decide in the moment how you're going to react to it. I'm not a good example of this. I'm just saying. I'm going to let William go, or not William. I'm sorry, Joshua. I apologize. It's late. Yeah, I'm gonna let Joshua go, but I'll let Joshua go. I think that's a really the red strings. So every time you tie a knot, it should be 2 knots, like 2 shoelaces. You could say you're doing 3 rings with a tight knot. Okay, so like 3 little red rings, and you can say when you tie the knot, this is actually something really interesting that you can think of or do, whatever you're doing, or whatever you want. You can say, Saint Michael, break these chains. Saint Gabriel, break these chains. Saint Raphael, break these chains. And then you do 3 like that. So then it's like what Matt is saying. It's like you're not it's not even, there's not even a specificity necessarily to what that means. But in a way, you are actually doing a kind of protection on the working itself. So I don't know. Joshua, please go ahead.
Dude. All right, this is so timely because the red thread is in Judaism. It represents the red rope that Rahab, she was a prostitute that helped the spies whenever they came into the city. They agreed because she helped to hide them that when they invaded the town, or the city rather, they would recognize her family's house by a red rope out the window. So that's how they escaped, right? And so also, however, we're moving into tonight's Passover. And so you would take the lamb into your house for 3 days. Each knot, to me, represents each day that lamb's in your house. And you would be inspecting it for blemishes and showing affection and stuff toward it, right? Chesed or whatever. And then it would be sacrificed and in a kosher manner. And its blood would be used to mark your door to so that the angel of death would pass over. And it's just real remarkable to me because in this context you can kind of see Jehovah as Jupiter, and he governs Mars, which is the lamb. It's the right hand, and whatever the angel of death is, it's the left hand. So it's some angels holding that rank. They're Garuva severity. They're punishing, taking the firstborns, first fruits, etc. So to me, that's real powerful right there, because also there's this theme with Jehovah of breaking chains of slavery. And so, but it's spiritual captivity and spiritual slavery. So, and there's this guy on YouTube that's like some type of Christian evangelical where he breaks the chains or whatever, and he'll like rip chains up off the floor. That's another thing that kind of came to my mind. And of course the tarot card. Oh, and pardon, one last thing concerning the tarot and the chains. So the devil, as you mentioned earlier, Matt, well, that's 10 and 5. So you got the hand, Yod, being emphasized there, I think. And so it's like, when you're performing labor, spiritual labor, which hand are you using? Are you, working for the Lord, etc.? And I forgot to mention this earlier, so it comes relevance now. But in Masonry, you're taught to divide your day into 3s: 8 hours for vocation, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for deity. And the point I was going to mention, if I had mentioned that earlier with David, was that his vocation and religion, like there was no separation. He became imbalanced with Yesod. So I was wanting to kind of make that point, where if you can't overdo it, but if you can find a job where you get to practice these separo, then you kind of get that benefit, right? But you got to maybe be mindful of that division of the day, which of course is still based on time, right? So we were talking about time earlier. But anyway, so those are just some thoughts, little loose threads, little scarlet threads I wanted to tie together. So I think what you're talking about here, man, it just blew my mind, because it's like, well, tonight's Passover, so the red, it would ward off the angel of death, perhaps, right? Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joshua. Well, I just want to say this, and this is not being, well, it is. Okay, I'll be a little egoic. I planned all of this, obviously. I thought of all of these things, all of these correspondences. So, I mean...
Well, you did a good job, because it was obvious to those who have eyes to see.
Well, that's right. Even the date that John picked for us, April 18th, and I was trying to get to this point, is that there's an idea that Easter can be the best day, or Passover, or the 18th. Obviously, that's a 9, right? That's very interesting. Then there are 9 ingredients in the oil, so there's Mr. 99 right there. I'm being serious. It's like there are layers. There are like, however many correspondences you want to find, I put them in. That they're all like intentional for the most part. Maybe some subconscious, but generally intentional, which is, I think, a big part of doing magic. It's knowing each individual component, bringing it together in synthesis, knowing your will at every stage. So you have your 3 knots, your 3 invocations to the angels. Now, we're going to talk about pillars. I know we talked about this at the very beginning. You're going to take 4 white kosher candles. They don't have to be kosher candles. Menorah candles are the best. I'm just saying, for this. So, or you can use little white Botanica candles. You can use emergency candles. You could even use birthday candles. I think those are shit. They don't really burn long enough, but you can use them if you so choose.
Well, the
Okay?
kosher thing only really matters because you don't want it to be pork. You know what I mean? Because if it's like pork lard in your candle, so that's just something to consider. If depending on what you're doing, I suppose.
Well, what I like about kosher candles is like you can buy the ones that come in the cans. They're 72-hour, 3-day lights. They're very inexpensive and they're made 100% of vegetable wax. So, instead of buying, like, I don't mind spending money on Botanica candles. I love a 7-day candle. Like, send me boxes of them. You want to be my friend? Send me boxes of those. But they're some, like, to get them in Canada is like they're $17 each. It's just not feasible. If I'm not saying I do Botanica candles anymore, but it wouldn't be feasible to burn them several every single day. And they don't even last a full 7 days.
You could try if you find an Orthodox church in your area. They have lots of.
Yeah, no, you can do, the Orthodox beeswax ones. Those are the bomb. Honestly, so good. Honestly, if you're gonna pursue ceremonial magic in any serious capacity, or just like use my kind of chaos folk methodologies, you could use beeswax candle, and it's often something that I did. Why I didn't say it right at the beginning is because they're often quite expensive. I was just trying to think like what is available. Passover candles are really great. I used to use them all the time. So that was just me, but I agree. Quality beeswax, sure, 100%, go for it. Yes, well, Joshua.
Oh, okay. I
Go on.
wasn't sure if I was rubber banding or if that was you or what. But I think beeswax for I learned about something this week that I thought was very profound. So the Pharaoh of Egypt was called the beekeeper, and I thought that was so profound. And I thought, well, why would they be called that? And I thought, well, maybe there's something about like they had, because they wore the uraeus too on their crown. So I think that somehow they might have been able to control people or something. I don't know, maybe with the pyramids or whatever was going on. But the whole bee thing, man, like it blew my mind this week because I thought like, oh, okay, it's like a hive mind thing. But of course, you got a queen with bees, and you got Pharaoh here, kind of acting as the queen, because even the thing I saw online, it was talking about even the headdress they wear is striped like a bee, So it's like, whoa, man, Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you, Joshua. I agree. If you want to use beeswax, use beeswax. I think the beeswax is the best. I don't know why I didn't even bring it up. I just guess I had a pause, but that's why we have multiple co-hosts, right? So you're going to make a 5-spot pattern. So you're going to take your oil, put it in a small bowl or dish. It doesn't have to be fireproof because you're not burning anything over it. You're going to lay it out in a square, Merkaba, if you will. So one at each quadrant. Yes, you can use your phone compass to figure it out. It's better if you use a real compass. I'm just going to tell you, but do what you want. Okay, so you're going to do it's really technically a 5-spot pattern. Again, the 4 and the 5 in rectification of the 9. So you're doing a 4-spot pattern, 4 pillars. On each pillar, you're going to read a specific psalm and a specific oration, and I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. So white or beeswax color. You don't need colors or anything. This is a solar working. So you want a clean, clear, pristine color, right? You're not trying to name your work right away. It's to break chains. That's the visualization that you're keeping in mind. So the first angel that one invokes using Psalms, but you're also going to recite an oration to that angel. And you don't have to use angels. It's just an easy conceptual layer for a magician to understand. So, Psalm 90. Psalm 90 is a psalm of the hands, meaning a psalm of working. So it is traditionally assigned in a more maybe hermetic 18th century way to the archangel Uriel. Okay, there you go. So Psalm 90, that's your first candle. That's facing the north direction. You don't have to face the north direction. You should be facing east, but it's your pillars, your little mini pillars. So think of it like that. You built a little temple with candles and a dish in the middle. Okay. And okay, so the next candle. So we're going to do the east candle because we're going to do never eat soggy worms, right? North, south, east, and west, just like an Orthodox cross, like how you do it on your body: north, south, east, and west, how you cross your shoulders, all of that. So it's the same idea. Okay. So east, we're going to do I think it's Raphael. I think it's Raphael. Okay. I couldn't read my note. I'm sorry. So we'll say it's Raphael, but we're actually not going to do East first. We're going to do 91 because I like to do them. I'm very OCD like this. I like to do them in order. So 91 is actually an Archangel Michael psalm. You could actually call this one, it is a direct invocation to the Archangel Michael, if you understand the Kabbalah of it. 100%, no question about it. The shield and the buckler, standing on the lion and the serpent, 100% makes sense. So it's the buckler prayer, though. It's not an offensive prayer. It's not an imprecatory psalm in particular, but it has an offensive quality. Whereas if someone attacks your shield, it attacks back. That's the idea. Whereas Psalm 90 is protective of the body. You're building like the kind of the what we call a kavacham, or it's the armor practice. Like Ram will know this, Shakti will know this, and I think Avi will also know this. Like, so you're building the armor practice around you. So that's Psalm 90. Psalm 91 is you have the tools and a bodyguard. Okay. Then you're going to do Psalm 99, which is the Archangel Gabriel. So it's the angel of that Yesodic consciousness, that kind of saint-like pristine consciousness. And then you're going to do Psalm 100 for Raphael, which is a healing and cleansing and uplifting psalm. That's why you end on Psalm 100. It's also sequential. It's also chronological. Now, can you play with it? And I didn't give very good directions. Yes, you can. And you can actually do a better assignation of the archangels with the directions. And you should. But that is the right order to read the Psalms, okay? And that is the Psalms for each archangel. I promise this is like it's like a more deeper, little bit more esoteric knowledge, but it really, truly, those are the Psalms. But you also want to read their prayer. So if you're not Catholic, that's fine. Just put that aside and just read the novenas are perfectly good. The Orthodox prayers are perfectly good. That's totally fine. You're just doing an archangel working. What? Okay, so you have all the candles lit. You have your thing in the middle. You've already prayed over that, right? You've already prayed over the oil, Psalm 104. You're going to pray over it again with all the candles lit. You're actually going to do this two more times. So you're going to do Psalm 104 over the oil directly, but also with the candles burning. Okay. Then you're going to do it every day for 21 days. So a full lunar cycle. So you're mixing the solar and the lunar. I'm sorry, my foot got a cramp and I had to adjust. Okay, so yeah, you're mixing the solar and the lunar. You're bringing everything together in synthesis. You're also bringing the microcosm into the macrocosm. That's fundamentally, you have just done magic. So you're going to shake the thing and read Psalm 104 every single day. Every single day. And if you want to do it in threes. That is completely fine. You can do it once at sunrise, once at noon, and once at dusk, sunset. Perfectly, that's a great way. You'll have a really good oil at the end. So when you have the oil, what can you do with it? Well, you can do everything with it. If you like candle magic, do candle magic. If you want to use it as an amulet and you want to seal it with beeswax, now you have to use beeswax, but you can do a sealing rite where you just simply get a beeswax candle or a seal. Sometimes you can get those at the Botanica as like these little beeswax seals. And what you'll just do is you'll melt it and you'll seal it, like literally seal the cork or the lid or whatever with wax, with beeswax. So you don't break it at all. So you can actually use the oil that you made, instead of using it as an oil, you can actually use it as an amulet. You could put it in jewelry, lots of things you could do with it. And you do want to recharge it, and you don't want to let people play with it. So find other solar dates, or as John and I discussed in DM, you can use the Archangel Feast, September 19th. You can use Christmas. You can use Epiphany. You can use Easter. You can use Passover. You can use St. John the Baptist Day, June 21st. You can use the equinox and the solstice. It's totally fine. No problem at all. So there you go. And why did I give this one for today? I know I said cursed content was being like an edgelord, because this is an all-purpose oil. It's to give you personal power to overcome the chains that not only others put in front of you, but that you put in front of yourself. That's why you cover the 4 quadrants, because you are the oil. That's also why I gave it 9 limbs. It's 108, like Matt said, Path the Saint, right? You bring the 8 ingredients into what? Witness. On Yesod. That's the secret one. So it's really 10. So it's really Malkuth. There, you just made Adam Kadmon. You made what Matt called a little golem in a little vial. That's your first golem. There you go. And if you want to recharge it, you just read Psalm 104, shake it, maybe do an Archangel invocation. You don't even have to read all 4. You can just do 104. You can just do anything. Just conceptual. You can break it down. You can play with it. It's just that it's a fun. Why is it listed in Exodus? It's listed in Exodus because it has primacy over all the other oils. It's the oil. That's why it's also a solar oil. That's why I chose a solar election. Through the sun, you can navigate all the other planets. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but there's a way to understand the cosmos through the light given off by a star. Interesting. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I really like that about the homunculus, but that too is just a tool, because the goal is to have the little man inside of your head, and then you don't no need for a homunculus outside your head, of course. But the one other thing I wanted to mention is Matt was posting in our group chat about the honey, and it reminded me of something else, because you were talking about the Psalms. And so Psalm 23 comes to mind because it talks about anointing the head with oil and honey and those sorts of things. Well, the reason for that would be, and I think I shared this in uh, the sub chat here for the what we're in here, the space. But anyway, the purpose of that is the shepherd would anoint the head of the sheep with honey to keep pests off, because the sheep would constantly ram their heads against trees or rocks or whatever, trying to get the pests to stop bothering them, which that's very symbolic, right, of like a curse or some type of, I don't know, whatever spiritual entity. And so the honey and the honey and stuff is added to the head so that those pests won't bother them, right? So when you're making this oil, well, this anointing oil, that's this kind of thing that has to maybe be the intention, right, is to have that effect, right, to ward off or protect, etc. That's kind of the purpose here. So I just shared that there. This specific psalm was 23:5. You anoint my head with oil. So I just wanted to share that because I thought that was really cool. about the oil.
Actually, that's one of the psalms, not the only one, but one of them I know easily by heart. I can just recite it, no problem. So, yeah, I always love when that gets brought up. Obviously, you can use Psalm 23 if you really want. It's a really gentle, all-purpose psalm as well. I actually recommend that you do a spiritual bath with Psalm 23, simply because it's not overly cleansing. It's not overly anything. It's kind of just blessing. So you can do a spiritual bath before you prepare your oil. You don't even need anything particularly in it. You can use salts. That's a mineral, so it does count. Water does not count, interestingly, but the minerals that you put in count. So if you want to be really numerological, you can totally add like Epsom salt, sea salt, and something else. And then you have your like 3 mineral bath. And there you go. Okay, Matt, please go ahead.
Thanks. Since you bring up the idea of this kind of being a golem, or tulpa, whatever you want to call it, one thing, well, first of all, today was the today I had to let one go off, which was kind of sad, to be honest, because you kind of treat them as little kids. But anyways, I was gonna say that if you are just playing around with this kind of stuff, now I was talking specifically about golems, not necessarily the thing that you were talking about. It's interesting to keep in mind that after a certain time, they do get, depending on how you program them, awareness, and it's kind of like they can become a burden, right? It's, you have a kid, they become adolescents, and then you have now a teenager doing teenage stuff. So just, it was funny because today literally was the day that I had to let one go off. So usually I would go with 40 days max, or 50. There's some Kabbalistic things there, but 40 is usually better. And yeah, that's the thing. And also about what Joshua said, that they eventually have to be in your mind. Yes, but it's also super nice, man. I discovered that it's actually super nice to do like ceramic work, because that's one way you can do them, right? You can do ceramic and have them, and that's actually very fucking nice. Like, I actually want to do them just because of the ceramic part. Now I wouldn't have like a legion of golems just because of that. But anyways, it's a little side topic here. I was talking more about the timing of things, when you should let them go. Ideally, you program them so that you integrate them at the end. That's what I did personally. Like, everything that he learned, I just get it back to me. But yeah, gotta be very aware when you're playing with that stuff.
That's a perfect way for us to close out. Is that, what are you going to do with your oil? Well, if someone does actually curse you, not threatens to curse you, because you don't believe that. You don't believe someone's words, right? You have your own will. Someone threatens, okay, good luck. Maybe don't wish them luck, but definitely laugh in their face. That's a really good, laughter is magic. Ha ha. Those are bijas. Those are bijas of the highest mantras. I promise. If you laugh at something like that, it breaks the klipa, 100%. No question about it. But if someone actually curses you, as in the secret enemies, you could say of Yesod, what to do? Well, as we've suggested, the oil itself could be a receptacle for that curse. So if you feel like it's gungy, low energy, low vibration, what you're going to do is you're going to pick a Sunday, but it doesn't have to be a Sunday. Maybe it's the hour of the sun. Maybe that's the best you can do. Okay, that's fine. Great. You're going to go to a place of running water. Yes, this can be the ocean or it can be a river. It has to flow away from you. You're going to throw the vial sealed. There's nothing toxic in it, right? It's just things you put together. You're going to throw it into the moving water so it moves away from you. Obviously, don't do it into the wave if you're doing it on the ocean. I don't think Sir Tim would do that, but I maybe someone else, maybe me. I wouldn't do that. I'm a little smarter than that, but I would put it in a river and maybe not be smart. Sir Tim, yes, please go ahead.
Also, I'd just like to point out that, you were saying that laughter is magic. When you laugh at something, it has no power over you.
100%. Couldn't have said it better. Succinct. Yes, 100%. Has no power over you. So do that first. If that doesn't work, do my method, throw it away, and then you can make a new one. And if you want to make a new one, you can make it in your mind, maybe. Or if you don't want to do it in your mind, you can do it the way I told you, or you can sort of like remix it for yourself, I guess. But what I do think is cool about the way I laid it out for the most part is that I gave you fundamental Kabbalistic tools to construct something maybe better, greater, or simpler. I think it can work both ways. Yes, Matt, please go ahead.
You just very quickly, you reminded me of something when you talked about, like, I think the word you used was redirect. So basically, one way people do curses, for example, if you're talking about like Santeria or Candomblé, these kind of things, maybe not Candomblé, but Umbanda, it's they get something, let's say a frog, like an animal, they inflict pain or whatever into the animal, and they redirect the pain of the animal into you, right? They get some connection to you, maybe your name, maybe your hair, whatever it is, they put the connection. And if you are open to the radio signal, let's say it this way, then you start getting the same pain as the animal. And another concept would be that where there is death, there will always be death. But what can be done? Well, just like Chin said, you can redirect things sometimes. It's very advanced, but again, if you have the idea, the conceptual idea, then you can start playing around this kind of stuff. So say that, yes, indeed, somebody did whatever thing, and you're sure that it happened. Or you talked with the karmic judges, and it's kind of like time is, it's coming, it is what it is. Or you did something that shortened your time here. Say that you spoke some bullshit, and now people are coming after you. So it's kind of like that is kind of certain. Well, some cases you can redirect that. So again, like I said, that where there's death, there's gonna be death. So you are not maybe the one getting afflicted to it, but you're gonna have to redirect it somewhere else. And that's another way of dealing with those. So we gave a lot of tools. You can push something back. You can try to ignore it, try to be above it. You can redirect it. It's energy. You can play around many different ways.
Very well said, Matt, and thank you. And I want to bring up something Joshua brought up a long time ago, but I forgot to address, was the blood of the dove. So there is actually a verse in Exodus where it says that cedar can be a replacement for this. Cedar is also an incredibly useful indigenous herb for both protection and cleansing, and it's also a solar herb, and it's also quite interrelated with Saint Michael. So, as well as obviously the Psalms that list its use in those Psalms. So, everything has its reason. It's a substitution, meaning, like even in the Psalm, in the practice is like to. Well, what these curanderos used to do in Mexico was they would actually take a dove, a turtle dove, and they would rub the sick person, and they would do a cedar bath. So exactly like what we're talking about, but just maybe in a bath form. And they would do a cedar bath, cedar tips in the bath, and they would like do this, and then they would release the dove. So it's like sort of like what Matt was talking about. Like you're redirecting it into an animal, but maybe not. That's the right-handed version, because I'm talking about curing, not cursing. But Matt talked about cursing, but the exact same thing. Do you understand? It's always polarities. It's always plus ultra. So that's another thing I think about cursing, and like what Matt was saying. Like, do you run your mouth? Like you will never find me like saying I'm going to curse someone. That's not where my mind goes. And that's also why I chose a solar Tipheratic oil or a solar Tipheratic theme. It's not that you will never do it. It's that you can rise above it, like Matt said, exactly what Matt said. And that's what Tiferet is. It's the ability to rise fucking above it. That also means in geopolitics. That also means in local politics. It's not being subsumed by the mass at all. It's 100% knowing your will at all times, carrying that with you through time and space. That's 100% what it is.
Acting in the world of causes, if you will.
Absolutely. That's perfectly said, Matt. And what is the third cause, talking about threes, but the word? So, watch what you say. But if someone talks shit to you, that doesn't mean you have to like turn the other cheek. That's total bullshit. We've talked about this a million times. Joshua's talked about it. Matt's talked about it. I've talked about it. Solar's talked about it. It's not about that. But you have to redirect the energy, because why do you want someone's bullshit? So learn to do a little plus ultra. That doesn't mean you get to be the judge, arbiter, and decision maker for every little slight. I mean, people tell me they're going to curse me like literally every day. Not that I don't kind of bring it on in some way because I'm a smartass, but really the extent of my smartassery is much more. It's not very nefarious, to be honest. It's much more me just being funny, like what I think is funny. So, but that's also a plus ultra, right? Like, can you meet humor with humor? Can you meet someone's anger with humor? Isn't there something kind of transmutational about that? That's something even people used to say to me, like, how do you post? I'm not trying to big up myself. I think I'm known for this sort of, so I think it's okay to say, is that people would always be like, how do you do that? Like, how do you shut them down? How do you like, you use like 4 words, 3 words, 5 words? Like, you don't, I don't, not like a word. Usually in fighting, I don't use a lot of words, because you have to do what Joshua said. You have to understand what is understandable. And sometimes you make magical choices in these kind of word battles. So you shut them down with words, but it's not just words, it's also your will. It's also your discernment. It's also your power. Okay, but don't be like me. Don't invite it on yourself. But I'm just saying, what you put out there, you will get back, like Matt said, plus ultra, but there's also ways to deflect it. Yes, Joshua, sorry. I apologize.
I just wanted to talk about the dove a little bit, because now I've never milked a dove myself, so I'm not speaking from personal experience, but I've heard that doves have a crop from which they produce milk and that they feed their young. And so the dove in itself is a peculiar bird for that reason, right? But and whatever symbolism goes along with all that. But furthermore, to be able to replace for the cedar and the dove to be interchangeable like that, it kind of made me think of like how incense, you mentioned like the right hand path, to really releasing the dove, which has the breaking the chains kind of symbolism, right? Because however you're confining that dove is a restraint, and then it's being released. Much like how alternatively the dove could be sacrificed and burnt as an incense or offering. So that would certainly be a left hand treatment of the same animal in that case. And
let me just interject for you right
sure.
there. Sorry, Joshua. I just want to say that is not, that to me, from a tantric perspective, like if you do it in the same temple space, that is not the left-handed treatment. Just for me, I'm just saying from a Vamacharya perspective.
Well, for me, it was just, out of obedience, because anytime you're just following the quote unquote the law, it's technically like left hand. So if it's prescribed by, it's like, well, I don't know, why I'm doing this or like that I'm doing this, but it's obedience, right? So there's like an element of obedience there. So yeah, I don't mean to like put negative connotations on the act, but that's just kind of how I see the left hand path in general, is like it's the one that carries with it some weight. Sacrifice that shouldn't be handled lightly on the conscience, for instance, right? So, and they've used the best of them. And there was just one last thing I was going to mention regarding doves, and that's that in the regarding the temple, they would sell animals and stuff outside the temple, and the famous scene of Christ running them out of the temple with a cat of 9 tails. I forgot it was a 9 tails. So there's the 9 again. Your oil has 9 components, right? So he ran the spirits out of the temple. Like, so he's kind of exercising the temple, right, with his cat of 9 tails, meow. So that kind of something that kind of comes to mind too, is like what they were doing was they were changing money in the temple for buying and selling sacrificial animals, and the conditions in which these animals were kept, imprisoned, if you will, it was unclean. They were getting diseases. They were, they were not the best. So even what people were buying to sacrifice to the Lord, as it were not the best. And he ran everybody out of there, because they basically turned the outer court of the temple into a stockyard. So anyway, I just wanted to mention those things about, because the dove is, it's got a history of being like a sacrificial animal.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry I jumped in. I just wanted to point that out for people, that I don't condone any of that. I would never do that. I don't think anyone should do that. That's just my personal opinion. You're gonna do what you will, and I have no control over it. But for me, any kind of Pashubali, it would either be ceremonial specific. Now, obviously, I'm Buddhist, so I don't do any of that. Just talking about strictly Shakta Tantra from Nuwari Shakta Tantra, okay? Or Shrivija even. Be strictly under specific ceremonial conditions. You would never burn the offering in that way for actual temple ritual. It's one stroke. That's the only way to do it. You can't feel bliss, pleasure, anything. Nothing. Empty. Completely empty. So most people totally get that wrong, and so I just want to point that out from people often talk about tantra or left-hand path. No, people don't even know how to do it, so I'm not even going to explain it, nor do I even really want to. But I just wanted to point that out about the dove is Kether. The dove is sort of the manifestation of the crown. So if you're talking about new covenant, you don't need to sacrifice anything, because the sacrifice, the transubstantiation has already happened. The covenant has been forged, right? Whether you're Christian or not, it doesn't matter. It represents one turning. That's it. Now, if you're talking about that for transactional purposes, that's totally different. And that's obviously also what was happening. However, I would like to avoid the klipa of transactional religion, because I don't think it served anyone in this room. Because I don't think it brings us to where we want to go. It's my personal opinion, but since it is, I am the boss, at least for the 3 hours that we're here. Obviously, Matt and Joshua are also the boss, but I'm the Dilo. I'm the big boss, the triad boss. So, I think that we should go higher. And I think consciousness-wise, we have to go higher as well. Because what are we like? Nobody would come to the spaces if they were completely filled by what is on the religious landscape. Nobody would be interested in speculative ideas. I'm not saying that nobody has their own faith and their own, ontological framework. Obviously, we all do, 2 degrees. But I just think that the whole point of doing this is we're moving into a new aeon. Obviously, that's what I call it, Aeon of the Daughter. You don't have to think of it like that. I just think that the covenant of the Son holds up. The daughter and the son are complementary. So for me, the what happened in the turning of the sun, whether you want to be a Christian or not, I'm not a Christian. I have no problem saying that. Okay, the Aeon of the Sun, no problem. Tiferatic consciousness, no problem. Because it's speculative Gnosticism. So what should I take offense to? That the Kabbalah makes sense? That it completely makes sense? That the Christian Kabbalah actually is in some ways, in my opinion, superior, at least in degree, at least for the sort of way that they map Christ out, it makes a lot of sense. So take that for what it is. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not saying to be any religion. I'm just saying if we were fully contained in the boundaries of traditional religion, nobody would be here. Okay, yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I guess you could say we're the cream of the crop. Dude, it just hit me. It's talking about dove's milk. Woo! Anyway, had to share it.
Absolutely. So, that we went way over. I actually kept pushing back the timing. I was going to do a perfect 2 hours and 22 minutes. Then I was going to do a perfect 3 hours. Oh, I guess we're going to end on 3 hours 33. So that's perfect. So, okay. So I'm Jin the fucking Ninja. Oh, I guess I have to let the boys do their outro, so I can't. I apologize. So, but we are gonna wrap it up. I appreciate you guys, every single person in the room. We had a ton of people tonight, just packed house. We always get a lot of listens back. Like I will go back and there'll be like 300 listens. I'll be like, what? So yeah, that's great. I'm glad that we have fun spaces that people want to come to, that we talk about things in a non-dogmatic way. Yes, we talk about Dharma. Yes, we talk about Christian Kabbalah. Yes, we even talk about Jewish Kabbalah. I like Jewish Kabbalah. Like, I don't make a secret of it, but that's not my orientation. So I'm gonna, I'll take little pieces here that I think are really interesting, but I actually think of it more as interrelated. I think that's like the main thing. I look at it much more as an interrelationship rather than opposing or, I know what a klipa looks like. So I personally avoid those, not because I think they're evil. I don't put a preconception onto it. I try and look at it practically. Very pragmatic person. If you knew me in real life, I'm very pragmatic, if nothing else. So, I think that's the best way. Non-duality. That doesn't mean woo-woo YouTube. I know, Ram, you love those Zoomer kids that are doing non-duality. I get it. But I tried. They, it's like something that Joshua brought up. It's like, what is your view? So Buddhism answers this, as I always say, Dharma is the resolution of all these paradoxes. But really, it's also the Shakti. The female consort is she's the true resolution. But in this way, Dharma is also a resolution. So it's the view, it's the primordial view. It's not Hesed as Jupiter, right? Because Jupiter is really the klipa, the god name. I know people don't like that. I know people hate me for that. For saying the pagan names are the klipa. I'm sorry that they are. If you understand Kabbalah to any degree, you know what the low names are. You can clip me all you want. You can put me on Wumao and all the fucking YouTubes. It's the truth. It's the fucking truth. We don't worship those gods in Buddhism. So I'm not going to be told by anyone that we do. And I'm definitely not going to be told that those are the more potent names. No. We're going higher. Aeon the fucking daughter. Okay, so I'm Jin the Ninja. I have a show called Threshold Saints. Thank you to everybody who came to the space. I'm going to let Matt and Joshua plug themselves, but I'm going to do a room shout out first. We have Avi. Amazing Avi. Thank you for coming. Thank you for always coming. Thank you for being so supportive. Kindness. Just a great person, great poster. Follow her if you want. Cassandra, great person. I can tell that she's like full of knowledge and love. So I'll say that. Cassandra also has her own content. She does tarot and she does jewelry. So please check her out and follow her if you're so inclined. Dawnland, awesome. Thank you for coming so much. Appreciate it. I know you've come to multiple spaces. If you like them, please keep coming. That's all it is. They wouldn't happen without you guys. So there's no point to do it if it's not in synthesis. That's the great work, is that we meet in space through time. We all transcend time to come. And, we make Diamond Thunder, hopefully. Not Klippas. Beth, flower power Beth. I think Beth is great. She has a locked account right now. But you know what? That's okay. Beth is a great poster. She's actually really funny, and she posts a lot of flowers. So obviously, you guys know I like, I like flowers, so it's all good. Thank you, Beth, for coming. I really appreciate it. I've noticed and deeply grateful that you've been so supportive and come. So thank you. You're seen and noticed, as Avi would say. Maybe not noticed. Maybe that's more of my language, but at least seen. Shakti, our Japanese Takini queen. Thank you so much for coming, Shakti. Valued lodge member. Just a great person, knowledgeable about so many things, Dharma, especially Japanese esoteric Dharma. I've learned tons. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you. Joseph Reed, we appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your support, both of my own work and of our, obviously, the Grey Lodge and our spaces. Wouldn't happen without you. Thank you so much. Rom, our buddy. Rom's really a co-host, to be honest. Like, he legit, I would just add him, and I know he wouldn't say anything, but I would add him just because he really does deserve just to be a co-host, just simply because he is so talkative in chat. And because we know him well, he's like one of those people that we know well. So, Rom, thank you. Thank you for waking up early. I know it's like 10:30. Whatever. It's not late anymore, or it's not early anymore. And Mookie, thank you so much for staying up. I'm sorry I'm so long-winded. Give the crows I guess you can't really hug them, but you can tell them. You can send my wishes through time and space. Just tell them Jin thinks of you guys and likes you or loves you. You can say love. That's okay. Okay. Lucifer, thank you so much for coming. Matt made a hilarious joke, well, someone did in the chat, about how one of the boys summoned Lucifer. So thank you so much for coming. Lanessa, thank you so much for coming. I just saw you followed me. I'll definitely give you a follow back right now. And we obviously the spaces don't happen without an audience. This is the whole point. It's not even an audience. It's active participation by being here, hearing, but also perceiving, also being in synthesis. It's the alchemical, it's the ultimate alchemy, really, is through this medium. Not necessarily spaces, but radio, podcast. People might call me a podcast bro, and that's totally fine. Because I know I'm fucking good. Maybe not perfect, but I know I'm good at Kabbalah. I know I'm good at Buddhism. I know I'm a decent magician. I know I have interesting ideas of the world. So I'm a podcast bro. That's fine. It's fucking magic. Plus ultra, baby. Let's go. Okay. So I'm signing off. Matt, Joshua, please close us out, boys.
Yes, very much appreciated everyone's time. Thanks, Jin, as well, obviously, for doing the major dynamic and guiding the stuff. Thanks, Joshua, as well, for being a great co-host. Thanks, Solar, spiritually, for being here as well. Not here, but spiritually, yes. Miss you, bro. And yes, also everyone that came, especially the ones that stayed for the whole 3 hours, because a bunch of crazy guys here talking a bunch of crazy things. So very appreciated. I'm Matt Mora. I like Kabbalah. I like sometimes debating stuff on the timeline. I like sometimes being nice in the timeline. I like the tech stuff. I like a bunch of stuff. If you like this, everything that we talked about so far, follow me. And I'll keep creating a bunch of apps as well. If you like playing around like with the different, technical things, like, oh, is it today like a good day astrologically, or like I want to play around with the gematria of words and so on and so on. I do a lot of apps on these things as well. Try always to make them free or at least open source so everyone can use them. Yes, with that, I pass the ball to you, Joshua.
Hey guys, thanks so much for allowing me to be with you all this evening. And there's something special about convening together, right? And that fellowship, we all get sharper and learn and pollinate, with one another. So it's a lot of fun. And I forgot to mention earlier when we're talking about the dove stuff, that the significance of the lamb, the Passover lamb and all that, was that it put an end to all that stuff. Like, that's why we don't have to do that anymore. So that's like the right hand function, is that it put an end to the sacrifice that we were required to do in the past. So thank God for that, right? So anyway, I was remiss. I forgot to mention that. But yeah. So tonight's a full moon. So if you go out and look, that's the same moon under which they were let out of captivity or slavery from Egypt. So that whole element of breaking the chains, tonight's a night that kind of echoes like that. So good timing.
Well, I mean, you both underestimate me so much. I'm so sad. No, I'm kidding, obviously. Well, I'm half kidding, we'll say. Anyways, okay, so thank you so much, Matt. Couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without you, Joshua. Thank you so much. My co-hosts. I hope everybody has a great night. Stay safe. Psychic self-defense. Psychic offense. Bring the 4 into the 5. 4 has smiting powers too. It's not all, it's not, it's lightning. You want the fire and the lightning, you have to have Hesed. So you have to figure out how to use it skillfully. It's really the key to all these things in the universe is skill. So, and Mookie, I don't know, were you? Yeah, you were here. I said kiss the crows for me or hug the crows. Kiss the crows, but maybe you don't want to kiss crows. But thank you. Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you to my co-host. Thank you to Solar. Happy birthday to your wife. We do miss you. You're a part of our, I don't know, posse, whatever. And that's it. So have a good fucking night. Listen to Threshold Saints.